everybody.
Welcome back to Mile Higher Podcast, episode 72. Today we're talking about the infamous case of Casey Anthony. And, well, really the case of Caylee Anthony, but the trial of Casey Anthony.
Yeah, it's such a twisted and just crazy case. I mean, there's so much with it, so it's going to be a good one.
Yeah, and it's one that I have wanted to talk about for a really long time on the podcast because I have done a video about it. I have just followed this one forever. It is definitely what got me into true crime. Both of us got really into true crime because we followed the trial when it was actually happening.
Yeah, and we were in Florida at the time too. So in Orlando, where it takes place. So.
Yeah, so we were super into it at the time and just like following the nightly news and totally immersed in it. It was kind of our first exposure to true crime and really gave us that like passion for it, I think. So even though I've done videos on it, we want to do a podcast because there's so much more. So much more. And we just found even more like the last couple of days doing research that has literally turned all my ideas of this case like on its head. Like I'm in a very weird place about this case. I've always thought for sure I knew exactly what happened or kind of had an idea, but now I don't know. There's a lot more out there, you guys, that we haven't even gone over yet. Yeah,
there's so much to dig into. So get ready for a long one today.
Yeah, it is. It's going to be interesting.
But there was two things we wanted to briefly talk about. One was that our first live show is coming up.
Yes.
In a week from now in Austin, Texas, at the RTX convention. So if you are coming, we'll see you there.
Yeah, hopefully we see some of you guys there. We're really excited to meet people.
Yeah, it'll be kind of our first like meetup together and stuff where, we'll get to meet some of you guys and just, do the whole live experience and see if we like that, because down the road we might go on tour and come to many more cities.
We really want to. That's the plan eventually.
Because we want to we always see you guys want to sit down and talk to us about all this crazy stuff we talk about, and it'd be so interesting to meet more people.
Just get an idea of who's listening. It's always nice to meet people because it just gives you a face to have in your head when you are recording.
Totally.
Because right here, it's just us. Actually, today it's not just us, which brings us to our second topic. We have a new Mile Higher Podcast assistant who you guys will now be occasionally seeing pop in and out. My cousin Janelle, some of you guys may know her already from just YouTube. If you're watching, she's kind of in the corner of the screen here. You might see her hand or something. She's been in vlogs. She's been in so many videos with me because you've been in videos on my channel since like 2013. So pretty much since I've been doing it, she's been doing it with me. And she is here to kind of take notes for us, and she's going to help pull up clips and make sure we're more organized, that Josh doesn't have to stop during the episode and like pull something up. She's going to be kind of like our DJ, like the podcast DJ. But she's also going to kind of chime in every now and then once we eventually get her a mic. She doesn't have a mic right now.
She wants to talk, but she can't. So,
but she's very well versed on this kind of stuff, and I feel like she's got good insight. So eventually, you're going to see her as a little part of the show. Yeah, and I mean, the whole point too is to help us like be more efficient and get stuff out more timely and things like that, because the show's just growing so quickly. And I just want to briefly say thank you to everybody that's been a supporter, leaving reviews for us. Like, seriously, guys, we really, really appreciate it. We never knew it would be as big as it is. And there'd be so many people interested in what we talk about and stuff. Like, at the beginning, we're like, we might just come across as like completely crazy. Yeah,
or something.
Are we going to look like tin hat freaks in a basement? Yeah. That's kind of what I thought. But I was a little freaked out. Yeah, I was too. And really didn't know what to expect. Like, just, it could have flopped. It could just be like, a few people, but I kind of thought it was going to flop. I was really nervous. I didn't know how a podcast would be. I mean, who knows how you're going to be on a podcast versus a YouTube channel, because YouTube is a whole different ballgame, folks. Like, I'm sure you guys notice I'm somewhat even different. It's a whole different vibe here because there's no editing, it's way more uncut. It's not planned out as much. So I didn't know if it would go well, but I've been amazed at how well this podcast is done and just how fun it is for us to make these episodes and then see the feedback from you guys each week. It's like, we love posting the episode. I'm always like, Josh, have you posted yet? Josh, have you posted yet? Because we've been having tons of technical issues that have slowed it down each week, but and we're moving too. So everything is kind of moved around. Like, it's kind of janky over here. The setup's a bit janky at the moment. But we really do love seeing all your comments come in, and we really appreciate all the support. Yeah, for sure. So let's go ahead and jump into today's episode. We got some very interesting news topics for this week.
Both of them have to do with space. Surprise, surprise. So the first thing I wanted to talk about is...
Loves space.
Yes, I do love space. But the first topic I wanted to talk about is scientists have traced a cosmic radio burst to a specific galaxy 3.6 billion light years away. Now, this is not like anything new. We have heard, like, seen these fast radio bursts, which if you don't know what that is, a fast radio burst is a transient radio pulse of length ranging from a fraction of a millisecond to a few milliseconds, caused by some high energy astrophysical process not yet identified. So these fast radio bursts, we have no idea what they are, what's causing them. They're coming from so far away, and we're able to capture it. That's what's so cool about it, is it's literally coming billions of light years away, and yet we're still able to capture these radio bursts. And the thing that was special about this one is that we saw it after only it happening one time. Like usually it's a repeating thing, but it was literally one burst and that was it. And we were able to capture it and pinpoint the location of the galaxy.
That is
billions of light years away.
Wild. And so can these types of radio bursts happen just in nature? Like, is it possible that we're just picking up a natural sound, or does it have to have been put out by another being?
Like an artificial thing?
Yeah.
So that's where the debate is, because nobody knows what it is. So, a lot of astrophysicists and scientists are like, it's either like stars exploding. It has to be something that can create this mass amount of energy all at once in order to be seen billions of light years away, right? Like it's got to be super crazy amount of energy being put off in order to create these types of like signals.
So it could be
natural. A lot of people think most likely it's natural, but some other people are like, could it be, some type of alien civilization either trying to communicate with, sending pings out into the universe, being like, is there anybody out there?
Just seeing if it's received.
Or communicating with something, or, some people think it's like some type of structure. Like we've talked about Dyson spheres before, like structures built around stars that are kind of theoretical, but are possible in order to harness its energy and stuff. But a lot of people think it could have to do with black holes collapsing, could have to do with like stars exploding and all kinds of crazy stuff. But we don't know what it is. And we keep seeing them. Like we just keep seeing from different parts in the universe, like coming right at us seemingly. And we're able to pinpoint where it's coming from, but we don't know why. The big question is why. So who's sending these signals?
It's really interesting to think about.
Or what is it?
Like the fact that it really could be aliens putting out a signal looking for us. I mean, that's obviously the most juicy possibility here. Yeah. That's really interesting.
It's a possibility. I mean, we don't know. So
yeah,
why couldn't it be aliens, and why couldn't it be?
I wonder what they're trying to say.
Well, we sent radio signals out into space, way back when, and
the 70s.
We heard back.
Yeah, so, we did.
And for all we know,
if you don't know, look up the Carl Sagan message. If you don't know,
the Arecibo message is what's called.
Message.
Yeah. But for all we know, these signals could be being interpreted by some top secret entity or government, or possibly extraterrestrials that are on the planet right now. And they could be like sending messages to home worlds, things like that. And just, NASA and all these scientists are just out of the loop, and they don't know that there's actually communication going on right now. And it's just kind of a top secret type thing. And they just don't know. And yet there's a secret, either the government or military or something, that is reading these signals and picking up information from them.
That is so cool.
It's just another possibility. Hey, I mean, we could sit around here all day and talk about the possibilities with this, but
yeah,
I don't know. It's really interesting, and it keeps happening. So I don't know. Maybe we'll figure out what the hell is going on, because why are these signals coming from deep space, and why can we see them? What's causing them?
Wouldn't it be wild if we were able to pick up a signal that actually had a message in it that we could interpret and understand? Yeah. Now that would be interesting.
And that's the thing, is they try to analyze the signals and so try to figure out like what the hell is going on.
Is there a code or a pattern or something like that? Some type of communication in there?
Because why else is it being sent out this far? Like, why is it being sent towards us seemingly too?
Yeah.
Like, why is it coming so close to our from billions of light years away? What's the chances that the signal comes close enough to planet Earth where there happens to be humans?
Yeah.
And we're like, oh shit, what is this coming from some other fucking galaxy? I don't know, man. It's really, really just mind blowing.
I love seeing more and more stuff like this though in the news. Seems to be happening more and more frequently.
Yeah. No, I think actually this story was on the mainstream news too.
I think it was. I saw it
this past week.
I'm pretty sure I saw this on CNN. I think I did because I'm pretty sure I messaged it to you, or I think to my dad. Maybe I messaged it to somebody.
Oh yeah. So that is very interesting. And the next thing that we wanted to bring up is this is just this kind of hurts your brain when you think about it. But AI essentially has now been able to create a universe simulation that was far more complex and accurate than we even expected it to be. Like the example they give is that they basically task AI. So machine learning is what AI is, right? And you give it information and then it processes that information and outputs something, something new. Mm-hmm. And what it did is it outputted not only what we expected it to find, but then it also outputted all of this extra stuff that we are like baffled as to how it already figured that, how it figured out all this extra stuff.
Than we thought it was.
Like they said, if you were to tell it, lions and bears, and you expect it to output lions and bears, but then it somehow figure out that there's elephants and all this other shit, then how did it know about elephants with just the lions and bears being input into it? How is the machine learning working to where it can already figure out that there's more than just that?
Yeah.
And that's really what it did. And it did it in such a short amount of time. It's truly just mind-boggling. Usually it's like a slow process to build out an entire universe simulator. Mm-hmm. Like, let me see. So it created, this thing is called D3M, the Deep Density Displacement Model. And the goal was to teach this model the way that gravity shapes the universe. To that end, they started by feeding the system 8,000 different gravity-focused simulations created by a highly accurate existing universe simulator. The system needed 300 computation hours to create just one of its simulations, but after training on the data, this AI was able to produce its own simulations of a cube universe 600 million light years across in just 30 milliseconds. These simulations were more accurate than those of the existing fast systems, which need a couple of minutes to create a simulation.
Wow. That's honestly insane.
For example, like it was able to create dark matter in the universe and accurately simulate the universe's evolution.
Oh my gosh.
So they're actually learning more about our existing physical universe from this AI simulator.
Wow. So that really shows us that there really is like a deeper meaning or like a code or like I don't even know how to explain what I'm trying to say.
It makes you think about the simulation theory a lot. Like that's what I thought of too. Like if it's able to create a 3D realistic model of the entire universe in 30 milliseconds, what could it be capable of creating over like years and years of time?
Oh, that's
machine
really
learning
crazy.
Could literally create an entire reality that is indifferent from ours. Like it'd be no different from ours.
If this really is a simulation, does that mean global warming isn't real and we like can chill on that?
It could be. It could mean a lot. I mean, the implications would be a lot of things.
Does that mean nothing matters at all, actually?
It could just mean that the slate gets wiped clean.
See, I just can't think that way. Like, that's such an interesting theory, but that just ruins my life.
Well, it ruins most people's belief systems and fucking morals. Everything is.
Well, not even just your belief systems, but it just like, it's like, am I real? Am my thoughts even my own? Is any of this real? It's the weirdest thing to think about. Honestly, it's kind of scary. And that's why I don't like it. Honestly,
it's scary thinking about life being artificial.
Yeah.
I think for us to sit here and like, especially for those that believe there's so much deeper meaning to the universe.
And I think that's really what it is.
Like obviously somebody who doesn't believe that there's anything after life might be like, oh, the simulation theory makes more sense. But if you believe that there's something more to life or, any sort of philosophical religious idea, you're going to be like, there's no way that the simulation could be real, because that would just completely discount all of our beliefs pretty much as to what happens after you die. If it's just like boom, you get powered off and then you're done, like or maybe not, or maybe there's something more. Maybe it's like intertwined spirituality mixed into the simulation theory, and like God is actually our programmer, and yet we're somehow like it's some weird thing like that.
Well, I really
some Matrix shit or something.
Do you think that whatever it is, humans aren't meant to understand it or be able to explain it with words anyway? I think life is really, really complicated, whether that's through a game, freaking artificial world, or something deeper than that. But it could really be a mix, like you're saying. It's so strange to think about.
It could be more artificial than we think, because why do we even have materialistic things at all in the first place? If this is such a natural world, why aren't we such natural individuals and natural beings? Why do we need so many material things in order to survive?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, we don't need a lot of things to survive. We want a lot of things.
But why do we have that want and desire? Like, what is that? What's driving those thoughts of like, I need to acquire more material things and I need to get things? Is that just like a product of our society? I'm getting way too deep right now.
Yeah, I'm saying if you want to go there for intro topics, that's probably thanks to our financial system and our episode from last week about the banking system and how we've been set up with this whole illusion. Obviously, we're constantly given advertising and you should be wanting better things and better cars and better this and that. Obviously, you're going to want more material things.
We've been programmed by
because that's what we think that's what we think is important in life.
Right. Yeah.
And I don't know if that's like part of our programming,
But did that programming happen way beyond that? Because if you look back at history, what were people always trying to do?
Yeah, maybe we were programmed like that
take
from the
resources, take from others. And
we do have that natural instinct. There's so much of it is just instinct. Like animals do the same thing. They'll hoard food. They'll keep, everyone wants to keep as much as they can for themselves because you want to survive. That's like the natural.
So is it like a natural instinct, like survival of the fittest type thing?
Maybe, and then maybe natural the greed selection just has gotten out of control by the society because obviously some people just go crazy with it.
I think that's probably right. I think we've been corrupted and put on this new path of destruction.
Wow, intro topics taking a dark turn again. No, we should literally call this dark news.
Here, I don't want to end on a dark note, so I'm going to end with a light note. The good news about this fucking AI being able to create the universe is that it is very possible that AI may save us from our own destruction. I really think that.
Let's hope so.
I think if we are smart about it, and if collectively as a society, people are aware of what AI can do, and we're, try to be as involved with it as we can, I think we can really shape what AI could do, and it really could fix the entire planet. Like if you think about it, AI is clearly way smarter than we'll ever be. And we start feeding it some problems and some data like on the ocean and the environment and things like that. Why isn't there an AI? Why don't they have fucking Watson working on climate change, like trying to figure out exactly what needs to happen in order to fucking...
Because they'd come back with like, here's what you need to do, dipshits.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, you need to like eliminate like half the population. The population's like the biggest issue.
Well, it's sort of an issue.
That's probably what it's going to come back with is like, there's way too many people.
It's going to be more of it. Population's going to be more of an issue if the planet continues to get warmer and, things start happening.
Back on a dark note.
God damn it. I'm trying to stay positive here. We are going to save the planet. We're going to save the human species. AI is going to become part of our society. It's going to become really part of us. And maybe that's the way we're supposed to live. Maybe that's part of the simulation is we're supposed to merge with the technology. We're going to have the microchips. We're going to be like cyborgs, basically.
Some people are sitting there like,
And maybe we'll really turn shit around, though. I think there's a great possibility that before shit gets really bad, AI is going to really turn shit around. Either that or aliens are coming soon.
I mean, that's our biggest help. We need help though, like, because the idea that humans are going to save our asses at the end of the day is just like looking so bleak. That is just not going to happen. No, and with humans aren't going to do it.
No, and the power structures that are in place right now will not allow us humans. If you rise up and you're like, you start protesting and stuff, they shut your ass down, they lock you up, they fucking tear gas you. So they're gonna constantly keep the people down until something greater than the forces, in power comes along and is
either
going
to be a revolution, AI, or aliens.
Boom! There you go. That's the future.
There's your future, scenarios. Guys. Pick your poison.
Aliens, AI, or revolution. Oh my god!
Welcome to the Mile Higher podcast.
Either way, it's going to be a crazy fucking ride.
Yeah, definitely.
That we're all going to be on. But all right, at
least we'll be on it together.
Yeah, hopefully.
There's your good note.
Yeah, as long as I have you, we'll be good. All right, so let's go ahead and get into Casey Anthony and this fucking crazy trial. But before we do, we'd like to thank our first sponsors for today.
So we are having a bit of a late night recording session, and it's just about 9 p.m. when we're finishing up podcasting here. And we're a little too lazy here at this point to cook dinner. So this is a perfect time for us to order Postmates. And we have been Postmates customers for a really long time and really like the service. Postmates is not just for food and grocery delivery. It's also for pretty much anything. We have gotten pet supplies on there. I've ordered things from Target before. I know people who have ordered pieces of furniture on Postmates. So whenever you're feeling lazy and you want someone else to get it for you, Postmates probably can do it. They deliver 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. And not only that, Postmates will get you your items within the hour. You don't have to make any more trips to the store. In fact, you don't even need to know where the store is, dude. All you got to do is use your Postmates app. So download the app now on iOS and Android for free. Browse local restaurants and businesses and track your delivery in real time. For a limited time, Postmates is going to be giving our listeners a $100 credit in free delivery for your first 7 days. And to start your free deliveries, all you have to do is download the app and use the code MileHigher. That's code MileHigher for $100 of free delivery credit on your first 7 days when you download the Postmates app. And that's anything you need, anytime you need it, you can Postmate it. Download Postmates and save with the code MileHigher today. So if you're anything like me, you've had a bad experience when it comes to bras. I've always hated bras. And a few years ago, I got a breast reduction and it was really confusing to figure out even what bras to get after that because my size changed and everything. And that is when I found Third Love, which is our sponsor for today. So I've been a customer of Third Love for a while. I truly love these bras and they are the only bras I will wear. Seriously. The coolest thing about it is they have a quiz on their website called the Fit Finder, where you go through kind of like a series of questions and they go off a bunch of different data and they find your perfect fit. And I actually found out that I was wearing the wrong bra size for a few years since my reduction. And I recently retook the quiz and was corrected. And I've been a lot happier in my bras since. They have more sizes than other brands. In fact, they offer 70 different sizes, including their signature half cup sizes. It's very convenient because you don't have to go to the store. You just hop right onto their website. Every customer has 60 days to wear it, wash it, put it to the test. And if you don't love it, you can return it and Third Love will wash it and actually donate it to a woman in need. Returns and exchanges are free and easy, which is awesome. Gotta love an online brand like that. And it is hands down going to be the most comfortable bra you own. And I'm serious about that. They are not only comfortable, but they're also really pretty. You don't have to sacrifice the style to also get the comfort with Third Love, which is why I truly love it. Third Love knows that there's a perfect bra for everyone. So right now they are offering our listeners 15% off their first order. Just go to thirdlove.com/milehigher now to find your perfect fitting bra and get 15% off your first purchase. That's thirdlove.com/milehigher for 15% off today.
All right, let's jump into the Casey Anthony case. This case is going to be just absolutely crazy. There's so many twists and turns to it. And yeah, just buckle up because this is nuts. But so first things we want to talk about is Casey Anthony herself. She's the mother and kind of the main suspect in this case. And in order to understand her and understand her behavior, which is very bizarre, I think it's always important to kind of go look at the childhood a little bit and look at the family. So you kind of have an understanding more of who she is as a human and, some of the traits that she has. So,
which is so hard to really get an idea of what their family life was truly like.
Yeah.
Well, you can only know so much about a family. So it's kind of hard to judge. And with all our cases, when we look at their childhood, we always only have a few details.
Yeah. And we're going based upon what other investigators and reporters have usually written about it or heard directly from them. None of us have ever lived with the Anthony family, so we don't know for sure, what actually happened. So Casey Anthony, she was born in March 19th, 1986 in Warren, Ohio, and she was one of two children to Cindy and George Anthony, who are big players in this case as well. And George actually worked in law enforcement at one point, which is interesting. But Casey as a kid was a bright, personable young girl with friends and what many thought was an ordinary American family. I think that's a good way to just kind of describe them, right? It's kind of an all-American type family, whatever that means. But
pretty average.
Yeah. But what's interesting is that friends say that there was a pattern of lying with Casey, which began all the way back in high school. Cindy and George attended Casey's graduation along with Casey's grandparents, only to discover that she was several credits short of graduating. Casey had stopped attending classes toward the end of the school year, but led her family to believe she would walk with the graduating class. And And when she was 19, Caylee gave her family yet another shock. She had put on weight and her parents suspected she was pregnant. Caylee denied it, claiming she was a virgin. Months into her pregnancy, she told her parents the truth, and the identity of the baby's father, however, remained a mystery.
Which is so crazy. It's still a secret. No one knows who Caylee's father is.
Yeah, and she's never actually like told anybody, I don't think, like who exactly it is. I mean, she's kind of pointed to different men, including her fiance, Jesse Grund, as well as a young man she had dated previously who had died in a car crash.
Yep.
So,
and notice how she'll wait until she really can't hide her pregnancy anymore to be honest about it. Like she always lies until she can't lie anymore. Pushes there's just something where she's not able to lie about it anymore.
She literally like backs herself into a corner. And then once she's in that corner and there's no escape, she'll be like, oh, you know, actually I lied.
Yeah.
And she has this habit of doing it. And that's what we see throughout her childhood and into her adult life, is just this pathological lying and no shame when she does lie. It's really crazy. But her daughter, Caylee Anthony, was born on August 9th, 2005. And a friend of Casey said that she had discussed giving the baby up for adoption, but was discouraged by her mother. For the next few years, Casey and Caylee live with her parents, and her Jesse Grund, her fiance, acts as the baby's father. Jesse even believed Caylee might be his baby, despite knowing that the timing of her conception made it improbable.
Yeah.
A DNA test would later find that really Jesse Grund was not her father.
He wasn't, but he loved Caylee.
Yeah, he did. I think he really saw her as like his kid.
Yeah.
Which I get. But yeah, the actual identity of Caylee's father is unknown. So then from 2005, a couple years go by, and it kind of, the story of this whole craziness starts in 2008. It starts in June 9th, 2008. Casey Anthony and her daughter Caylee move out of Casey's parents, Cindy and George Anthony's home, and in with her ex-boyfriend Ricardo Morales and her friend Amy Huizinga. So this is the summer of essentially Caylee's disappearance. And so these are the events and days leading up to the actual disappearance. So everything is seemingly normal. In June, Caylee's videotaped visiting an assisted living facility with her grandmother, Cindy Anthony, that morning, who is visiting her father. Cindy swims with Caylee into the Anthony's pool later that day, afterwards removing the ladder and closing the gate. You want to talk about the pool and like kind of their situation in Florida and stuff?
Yeah, I mean, tons of people in Florida have pools, obviously, so it wasn't like really uncommon or anything. But obviously, when you have a pool and you have a kid that's wandering around the yard, you always make sure to get rid of the ladder so that they can't like just jump in
and drown. Yeah, especially if they can't swim.
Can't get back out.
She, from what I understand, she really loved swimming too. Yes. She loved the pool. She was always in it, and so they were really good about like using the ladder and then putting it away because they knew she was there all the time and loved to get in the pool. It was a big
family rule.
So it was always, you know, a priority to make sure that that wasn't in the pool to where she could get into it. So then we get to June 16th, 2008. This is the last day that Caylee is seen alive at the Anthony family residence. And this is when things start getting crazy. So Casey claims to have seen Caylee for the last time on this day. And she said she dropped the little girl off at a babysitter's home, and when she returned to pick her up, neither Casey nor the babysitter were there. This is her original story as to what happened. The following day, George and Cindy Anthony noticed that the gate to the swimming pool is open and the ladder is next to the pool, which is interesting. And then in the ensuing days after Caylee goes missing, Casey starts displaying some really truly bizarre behavior.
Which I don't know how common. It's hard to say because we have like different versions of how she kind of was. Like there's different reports of how Casey truly was. Some people describe her as like a party girl. Some people described her as not so much, but she definitely had a lot of partying in this particular time period.
Yes. She was photographed at Fusion nightclub participating in a hot body contest. And there's numerous pictures, and these pictures were later released to the media, who went crazy with it, which we'll talk about in a minute.
Nancy Grace would put that picture up and call her Tot Mom. She called her Tot Mom the entire trial. It drove me insane. Tot Mom, Tot Mom,
yeah,
Tot
she
Mom.
Did. She always comes up with these like nicknames for
Tot
people.
Mom, Casey Anthony.
Mm-hmm.
just drove me insane. I'm sorry. But yeah, it's so odd. Like she was just, it seems like this particular time, she was really, really going hard. Like there's not all these pictures of her before this.
Yeah.
You know, there's not as much, but this particular time, June, she was really having a good June. This was her summer.
Yeah, she was living it up for sure. And but it's interesting because her daughter's missing, and yet she's out here clubbing and, you know, having a good time. Like, what shouldn't she be looking for her daughter if her daughter is in fact missing
with this nanny
or this babysitter or whatever? So, you know, suspicions are kind of starting to be raised a little bit. They're like, why is she not more concerned and things like that?
Just to correct it, I think in the notes it just said earlier, Josh said that neither Casey or the babysitter were there. Caylee wasn't there, not Casey.
Oh, did I say Casey?
Yeah, it's in the notes as Casey too, so we might have just typed it in wrong. But yes, Caylee was gone. The babysitter was gone, and Caylee was gone too.
Yeah. So then fast forward 10 days later, and the family car that Casey Anthony often used was found abandoned in front of an Orlando, Florida cash advance business and towed away. And when the towing company called Casey's parents, Cindy and George Anthony became concerned, clearly, like, why the hell is our car abandoned and get towed? Like, what happened? And Casey reportedly had told her mother that she was planning to go on a mini vacation to Jacksonville, Florida. And her mom later discovered that her daughter had been just staying with her boyfriend during this time. That because they had moved out and she was just chilling, basically.
Yep.
And this car is just randomly abandoned in the parking lot. And then in the beginning of July, her behavior gets even more interesting. She actually gets a tattoo on her back that says Bella Vita, which means beautiful life in Italian, which you want to talk about kind of what theories people are starting to kind of form in their head as far as like...
Well, yeah. I mean, people are obviously starting to think maybe this kid is missing because Casey got rid of her. Like maybe she didn't want to be a mom anymore.
Right.
And it's so interesting. Why would you get Bella Vita? God, your kid's missing. That seems so weird. But you know, people will say you show grief in different ways. Maybe she was dealing with something. Maybe she really thought she was missing, or maybe something else had happened. This is hard because there's like other versions of this. There's multiple versions of what could have happened. So talking about this in past tense is really difficult without.
Yeah, it's true.
It just doesn't make sense. I'm trying to like explain things, but without giving everything away.
No, I know. Yeah, it's hard to kind of go step by step through this because everything connects and everything comes back to each other, and the theories all are interwoven with each other.
We're almost to the point where it just blows up, but
yeah. So we're just kind of going through the timeline because this case is so huge that you have to kind of take it step by step in order to not miss anything. And there's just so many twists and turns that happen. But on July 15, 2008, George and Cindy Anthony pick up Casey's car from the impound yard, and George observes a strong odor emanating from the vehicle. An inspection of the car trunk reveals a plastic bag containing trash. Distressed because Casey has not brought Caylee home in a month, Cindy tracks down and meets with her friend Amy, who takes Cindy to the apartment where Casey is staying and makes Casey come home. Casey then tells her parents that she hasn't seen Caylee in a month and that a babysitter named Zenaida Fernandez Gonzalez, or as Casey called her, Zanny, may have kidnapped her.
So at this point, it seems that Casey has lost her daughter or done something else with her daughter, but doesn't say anything to her parents until she absolutely has to. So here's another example of her lying until she has no other choice but to tell the truth.
Until her parents are like, where the fuck is our granddaughter,
exactly.
dude?
Like you showed up at the house, she's not here. Like, where is she?
And she's not giving any good, real, like...
She'd always have excuses for her mom, like she's napping or she's with a friend, or there was always some reason that she wasn't able to talk on the phone. Like, because they had asked before over this 30-day period where she was. But then, when she came home with her and she wasn't there, I mean, where else would she be? So she had to tell her. And that's at that point, she's like, oh yeah, she's with Zanny the nanny.
And then like she took her, essentially tells her like all these days later that, oh yeah, she took her. I've been looking for her. And her mom's like, but you haven't called the police?
Yeah. Or haven't told us. Yeah, it's so weird. And then you look at her behavior and obviously you're going to instantly think There has to have been a murder here.
She did something with her child.
Yeah, this just looks like a textbook, girl has her baby too young, doesn't even want her baby, wanted to have an abortion or to adopt, I think. Her mom blocks her from doing that. So now it's really starting to look like, okay, she didn't want this kid in the first place. She wanted this free lifestyle. And then she gets this tattoo that says beautiful life after her daughter's gone.
Right.
It's really starting to look bad. It's starting to look like, okay, she wanted to live her beautiful single life.
Especially when people start figuring out the timeline and they're like, oh, guess what she's been up to? She's just been partying and hanging, acting seemingly like nothing is wrong,
Right.
Not like a normal person would react to their missing child or child being kidnapped, especially.
Yeah. And basically what she told law enforcement is like, I wanted to deal with it on my own. I didn't want to stress my parents out.
Yeah.
I didn't want to have to get everyone else involved. I wanted to see if I could take care of it myself. So I've been secretly looking for her on my own. So obviously people are like, okay.
Yeah. And her mom is like, what the hell? Yeah. We need to call the police right now. And so she actually makes 3 different 911 calls. And we're going to play some of the third one because it's the one that's got the most impact to it, I think.
Yeah.
The first one she says, though, I need my daughter to be arrested, essentially, in the first 911 call. And then she calls back again because she's trying to see where the deputy is, and then the third one, though, she's like very frantic and is starting to freak out about the idea of Caylee being kidnapped or something happening to her, and it's really just eye opening. So we'll go ahead and play that for you guys because it's
call is very telling.
It is.
911, what's your emergency? I called a little bit ago. The deputy sheriff saying I found out my granddaughter has been taken. She has been missing for a month. Her mother finally admitted that she's been missing.
Okay, what is
here now?
Okay, what is the address that you're calling from?
4937 Hope Spring Drive. We're talking about a 3-year-old little girl.
4937 what?
Hope Spring, HOPESPRING Drive, Orlando. My daughter finally admitted that the baby's in the store. I need to find her.
Your daughter admitted that the baby is where?
But the babysitter took her a month ago that my daughter's been looking for. I told you my daughter was missing for a month. I just found her today, but I can't find my granddaughter. And she just admitted to me that she's been trying to find her herself. There's something wrong. I found my daughter's car today, and it smells like there's been a dead body in the damn car.
Okay, what is the 3-year-old's name?
Caylee, Caylee, Anthony.
Caylee Anthony?
Yes.
Okay, is she white, black, or Hispanic?
She's white.
How long has she been missing for?
I have not seen her since the 7th of June.
What is her date of birth?
2000, oh God, she's 3. She's 2005. George Kaylee's missing. Kaylee's missing. Casey says Danny took her a month ago. She's been missing for a month.
Okay, I understand. Can you calm down for me for just a minute? And I need to know what's going on, okay? I'm going to try and talk. Is your daughter there?
I'm on the phone with them.
Is your daughter there?
Yes.
Can I speak with her? Do you mind if I speak with her? Thank you.
I called them 2 hours ago. They haven't gotten here. Can you speak? Finally admitted to Danny took her a month ago.
Ma'am.
Okay, downstairs. They want to talk to you. Answer the question. Hello?
Hello?
Yes.
Hi. Well, can you tell me what's going on a little bit?
I'm sorry?
Can you tell me a little bit what's going on?
My daughter's been missing for the last 31 days.
And you know who has her?
I know who has her. I've tried to contact her. I actually received a phone call today, now from a number that is no longer in service. I did get to speak to my daughter for about a minute.
Okay, did you guys call and report a vehicle stolen?
Yes, my mom did.
Okay, so there's been a vehicle stolen too?
No, this was my vehicle.
What vehicle was stolen?
It's a 98 Pontiac Sunfire.
Okay, I have deputies on the way to you right now for that. So now your 3-year-old daughter is missing. Caylee Anthony.
Yes.
White female.
Anthony. Yes, white female.
3 years old. 8/9/2005. Her date of birth.
Yes.
And you last saw her a month ago.
31 days. From 31 days.
Who has her? Do you have a name?
Her name is Zenaida Fernandez Gonzalez.
Who is that? Babysitter?
She's been my nanny for about a year and a half, almost 2 years.
Why are you calling now? Why didn't you call 31 days ago?
I've been looking for her and have gone through other resources to try to find her, which was stupid.
So that's just like, it's such an eye-opening call. And like, if you're watching this on YouTube, you can see how just distressed Cindy looks like when they have to replay this during the trial, and she has to hear this over, and she just looks torn apart, man. Like,
yeah,
which I totally understand. And I mean, I don't know, like her mom's reaction seems so much like more normal and in line with this situation versus like Casey gets on the phone and she's just so calm,
almost aggressive.
Yeah, almost like
31 days. Like, oh, it's such a strange
acting
response.
like it's not a big deal that her daughter's been gone for 31 days and she's just now telling the authorities, like, what the hell?
Yeah. Makes no sense.
And not being forthcoming, not being like, oh my God, my daughter's gone missing. Here's all this information for you. Here's where she is. Just literally like answering the questions as she's being asked too. She's not actively seeking help from the dispatcher or anything like that. She almost seems inconvenienced to get on the phone with them.
Oh, definitely. That's how she came across.
Yeah, it's just crazy. And I mean, and then it just gets even wilder because literally like the next day, police investigators are there. They're starting to try to make sense of this whole situation story. And pretty right off the bat, they realize she's been lying about a number of different things, including where her nanny lives as well, and her nanny for that, and her place of employment, which you want to talk about that. That's like just so crazy.
So interesting. So she basically said that she worked at Universal Studios, and she drove there with a detective, two detectives. And they went in there and she walked into the building and was acting like she, was super used to it. She was literally like waving at people.
Yeah. Being like, hey, what's
She was like saying, hey, like waving. And then they would like look at her all confused, like they've never seen her before. She kept going. She even went up to the front desk, talked to them. They watched her do that. And then she went in. Didn't she even give them like a name? Like, oh, and then they couldn't find it. So she's like, I'll just find my own way back.
Pretty much. Yeah. Like because there's a security. You can't just walk into like the offices at Universal Studios and walk around.
Yeah. And they somehow let her in there.
Yeah. Well, I think the detectives that were there kind of like tipped the guy off like, hey, this, like, we're trying to figure something out here. Like, let her just go through. We'll escort her, And then,
she went all the way to like the end of a hallway where there was literally no more doors. And then was like, I don't work here, actually.
And the detectives are like, yeah, no shit, bitch. Like,
they were like, we know.
Yeah, so
let's go tell the truth. So that's when they brought her in to start talking.
And they start questioning her about the nanny and stuff. And they realize the address that she gave for her nanny was an apartment, which was vacant for 140 days.
Yeah.
She gave them just some fucking random address, and they went there and it's just a vacant apartment. So they're starting to be like, is this nanny even real then? Like, what even is this? It sounds like such a, like, I don't know, the name, the way she said it, like it was already like in her head, like Fernandez. The fact she said the middle name too, or the, second
Fernandez
last name.
Gonzalez. I know. Yeah.
Fernandez Gonzalez. Like,
which I think she did. I think she had the name already at that point. A lot of people think that she just randomly opened a phone book and found that name, because what you will find is that, I don't know if the address connected. I don't think so, because the person that there is a real Zenata Fernandez Gonzalez, whatever.
Right.
There is a real person, and it is her name. And Casey probably got that out of the phone book, is what they think. So she probably had this name all ready to go. She knew what she was going to say. I mean, she did have 31 days to think about it. Maybe that's how she would have the name in her head so fast.
Right. So, I mean, at this point, she's already lying to police, which is a crime. You cannot lie to police like this. And
aren't her parents like, how come we've never met this nanny that you've apparently had for a year and a half?
Yeah, I would love to know what the conversation was after the 911 call with her mom.
Like,
or if her mom was even listening to what she was saying, and that she was like, I had a nanny for a year and a half, like, and her mom be like, I'm her nanny. A liar. What are you talking about? She lives with us. Like, when you need somebody to watch her, you bring her over to our house.
Yeah.
Because you used to live here.
Them.
Right.
Yeah.
So it makes no sense whatsoever. And I think detectives figured that out pretty quick. So the following
She's
day,
a very confident liar.
She is.
When she says something, she has so much confidence behind it that you almost like wonder if it's true.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I think
it's also believable. Like the way that she delivers it too is kind of like, okay.
Yeah, that's
it doesn't seem like she's clearly lying. Yeah.
No, that it's so confident that you don't think it's a lie almost. Mm-hmm. It's wild.
So the following day, she appears in court, in which the judge actually denied bail, saying she showed a woeful disregard for the welfare of her child. And the policemen from the sheriff's office search her car and take several items of evidence, which we'll talk about more in a sec. And then this is when Casey Anthony hires Jose Baez, the legal attorney, almost the infamous legal attorney. He's still practicing law and stuff. He's done. What did he do just recently?
Yes, we did see him on something recently. Hey, assistant, look it up. See, this is why we have her here now.
He did another. Who hired him? Somebody famous hired him.
She's gonna look it up. Jose Baez just recently worked with someone else. I remember.
So she hires this like big time kind of like celebrity lawyer.
Oh, Harvey Weinstein?
Yeah, Harvey Weinstein.
Weinstein.
Whatever.
Weinstein.
Yeah, well, he's definitely
definitely work together because he is a lawyer for slime balls. I'll say that.
Yeah.
He is just like such a slimy fucking lawyer. He will go so far with things.
Mm-hmm.
And there's more that we will talk about towards the end of this episode about his ass.
Yeah, and he goes hard for Casey too. Like he seems to like really try his very best in order to get her.
Oh yeah.
Off of these charges she's getting. And he starts out by writing a letter to the Orange County Sheriff's Office about Casey's willingness to cooperate with law enforcement. He's trying to get her bail. And because of police testimony about allegedly incriminating evidence from the car, Circuit Court Judge Stan Strickland sets Casey Anthony's bail at $500,000. And at the same time, detectives revealed that they had found strands of hair that looked like Caylee's in the trunk of the Anthony family car, and that cadaver dogs had smelled human decomposition in the trunk. So this was huge. Like, once they searched the car, they were clearly able to see that there was these weird stains back there, and they brought cadaver dogs, or like definitely signs of decomposition in the trunk. So something dead was in the trunk at some point.
And that becomes the big debate over the trunk, though, is whether or not it is human decomp, or is it from the trash that was in there? Because if you remember, there was a bag of trash that was in there, which, many people argue that a bag of trash could not create like a human decomp smell. That's like a very specific smell that's horrible. Like when you smell that, it.
Right.
There's a difference between that and some trash, which had like pizza in it. And like, obviously some things for 31 days in a Florida car is going to be pretty rank, but
but is
not
it going to
as bad
smell
as
like
body.
death? Yeah. And the fact that Cindy even said that before detectives, like she signaled
that was a big thing on the phone. The fact that she said it smells like there's been a dead body in the damn car.
It's bad. Like it's
and you know that she also was thinking in her head that it might have been Caylee, because why else would you say that? She wouldn't have said that. She said she's been missing, and I also got her car and it smelled like there was a body in the car, all in one sentence, as if that was one big thought.
Yeah.
Yeah. She wasn't just using dead body because it was a bad smell. I think she really thought someone could have died back there. And she said that on the call, and that's huge.
Mm-hmm. It is huge. It's huge evidence for the prosecution. I think detectives, when they reviewed the 911 call, they're like, all right, here, she might be onto something here. Because I feel like people don't just say that about trash,
No, they don't. Like, how often you'd be like, oh, it smells so bad down here. It smells like a dead body.
Yeah.
No, unless there's a dead body, you don't just say that.
Or you are subconsciously thinking that.
Yeah. I think she was thinking the girl, she's missing. My granddaughter's missing. The car smells. It was all one statement.
Right.
And I think, this is before she started really thinking about Casey could go to jail or anything like that. So I think she was being honest on the phone. I think that first call is probably the most honest we've ever gotten from her.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's clearly, when you watch it back during the trial, she just is like, completely breaks down.
Yeah, because she knows that was
it's a
real.
huge moment that she realizes,
panic too.
The truth about what really happened. So after the decomposition thing in the trunk, Casey Anthony is a person of interest in her daughter's disappearance. And they're starting to treat this as a potential homicide case, which, I mean, rightfully so, it makes sense.
Yeah.
And
meanwhile, they're still trying, the family is still saying that Caylee is missing. It's hard that it's Casey and Caylee.
Yeah.
But, there's like the family made all these shirts. I remember them being like butterfly themed, like fly home or something like that. But they would wear them to the jail, and they were trying to have like little search parties. So Cindy started being in like major denial. Like when they were in this period of like, maybe she's with the nanny. Like Cindy, obviously that's way easier for her to believe that she's with the nanny and they'll just get her back and everything will go back to normal. Mm-hmm. So in a lot of the footage, you see her parents come into the jail to see her. There's tons of footage.
I've got a clip later on.
Yeah. You can see that they're wearing these shirts in most of the footage.
Right.
You know, they're out looking for her. They're holding signs. They're trying to hold a missing persons campaign. Meanwhile, you know, I think in Casey's mind, she already knew that this isn't a missing persons case, because she seemed to be the one that was least concerned about finding her. Like whenever the phone calls, that's really never about like the search efforts and stuff. It's all about her and getting her out of jail and how she's had everything taken from her and poor Casey the whole time. And it's really never really focused around her daughter. So you can start to, I think people already had a sense from the way she was acting that there was no missing child to find.
Right. Yeah, I think that's a very accurate description for sure. Because, I mean, there's nothing that would indicate from her behavior or any of the actions she took that she was like really actively searching for somebody that's still alive and, you know, is truly kidnapped or out there or especially with somebody that you know.
Yes.
Her behavior doesn't add up to that. Because if that's the case, you'd be like,
out looking for them.
There, like searching for this individual and like telling law enforcement, find this person. They have my daughter. Like the lack of all of these things just raises so much suspicion around Casey.
Yeah, especially when it's like, it's not like she was holding like search parties. You know, she was out drinking and getting tattoos and doing hot body contests during this time. She wasn't searching for her daughter. So it just seems really obvious. That she knew she wasn't missing. Right.
So the judge in this, which there's actually two judges in this, they had to replace one of the judges, Judge Strickland. But anyway, the defense, so Jose Baez and her defense team go to the judge and want to essentially ban the release to the media of all of the jailhouse recordings, 911 tapes, visitor logs. But Florida law mandates that record requests by the media be honored promptly. So that was another thing that I think the reason why this case blew up so much is that so much information came out and it gave the public all of, you know, the stuff that was going on and all of the evidence. And, you know, when you start, and as a public person, you start seeing all this stuff and you're not seeing somebody being locked up for their child, you're starting to get pissed off and you're starting to wonder what the hell's going on. Like, why is Casey Anthony, you know, not being charged with anything? So the first charges that the state attorney's office brought against Casey was one felony count of child neglect, because obviously they don't have enough proof to put anything else on her at this point.
For just failing to report her as missing for that amount of time is neglect.
So this is in August 2008, and TV reports started saying that investigators suspect that Caylee may have drowned in the family swimming pool on June 16th. So that was kind of the story at first. And also the story that the defense took was that Caylee had accidentally drowned in the pool and that in fact she wasn't kidnapped. But this information is kind of starting getting leaked to the media and things like that. And then we get into the middle of August and meter reader Roy Crunk reports suspicious bag to police. A police officer meets Crunk at the scene and Roy Crunk tells him he had seen a skull and bones in a bag. However, the officer apparently was rude and conducted only a cursory search. So the first time, nothing happens with that. And then Casey is in jail with that $500,000 bond. And this is just kind of a weird thing that I didn't even really know about till I dug in deeper. But in order to get bonded out, she actually contacted a veteran bounty hunter with his own reality TV show named Leonard Padilla. And this guy is a character, man. Yeah, he's an interesting individual. He dresses like he's like straight out of the Wild West, and he's came all the way from California to pay her $500,000 bail. In which, after he did this, she was fitted with an electronic monitoring device and released. And later on, this guy had said that he was hoping that Casey would lead detectives to find Caylee, and he was disappointed when she failed to provide additional clues. And then he went on to say that Casey was narcissistic and promiscuous, which only he came out publicly and said this, and this just fueled the fires around, what people thought of Casey and her outrageous behavior. And then later, towards the ends of August, she's arrested again on charges of writing 4 checks worth $650 on her friend Amy's checking account without permission. And Orange County Police said the charges are unrelated to the investigation. You would think that if you were literally a possible person of interest in a homicide investigation, that you would not go out and commit fraud. The fact that she went and did this was very interesting. I guess she didn't have any money. Because she had to get bailed out, and she had to put up money for the bail bondsman, I'm sure. So I'm sure she had no money. So she went and just used some checks that her friend had left in her possession, and went and got caught and then got arrested again. So
hang on. Yeah. I'm sorry. I was just thrown off so much by this. So Roy Crunk first saw the skeletal remains in August.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God.
Mm-hmm. And they didn't find anything.
What? They must have just not even gone out.
Yeah. Basically. The officer was rude. Yeah, they basically ignored his thing. And that's why he went back, and the bag had come loose or something, and he stuck a stick through it.
Okay. Interesting. Okay, so that little part is barely reported on. I have never heard that.
No, I know. And that's the more you dig into this, you realize
there's some deep details in Reddit.
The media
and stuff.
just did not display the whole story. There's so many things in this that got left out from the actual trial and evidence of the timeline.
Yeah, sorry that took me a second, but I was so confused. I was I remember them finding her body in December, and they did, which we'll get to.
Yeah, later on they actually find all of the remains, but
right.
He reports of what he thinks
in
is
August.
this, but then the officer never comes out, and then he kind of just ignores it. He kind of just goes off, and then he returns to the area later on.
Yeah.
Which we'll talk about. And
to pee, right?
Yeah, he just kind of wanders back into that area because he was doing his meter runs. He goes around and checks everybody's meters at their houses. And yeah. So this is now September 2008, and police said they believe that Caylee Anthony is not alive. And the Orange County Sheriff's Office issued a statement saying that based on evidence that wasn't yet public and FBI tested, it is believed that there's a strong probability that Casey Anthony is deceased. Which
maybe if you'd search all tips thoroughly, what the hell?
Yeah, they would have found. They could have found out about her, remains and stuff way earlier.
Oh, that's horrible. I can't believe there's barely been any scrutiny on them for that.
Yeah.
They've really flown that under the rug.
No,
that is not a well-reported fact.
Yeah. And I think that's why the Anthony family and stuff has that sort of mistrust with the police and not forthcoming with the police, is because they feel like they're not really helping and stuff.
Interesting.
And another thing I was going to mention is with any missing persons case, being missing for 31 plus days, the chances of finding that missing person alive are slim. Slim to none at that point.
It goes down by the hour.
Right. So obviously law enforcement's the probability of her being alive is minimal at this point.
Slim. Yeah. Especially a child. Because they can't there's a good chance. There's no chance that they're just out taking care of themselves and just living somewhere.
Right. So this is interesting too. One thing that I wondered about all this is polygraph tests, right? We talked about this, Chris Watson, why, the fact that you can't force somebody to take a polygraph is interesting. And they asked the entire Anthony family to take a polygraph test. The FBI and the local authorities offered up a polygraph test, because if you think about it, a polygraph test, if you're a person of interest, the easiest way to get the police off your back is to pass a polygraph.
Yeah.
Right. But you got to be confident that you're going to pass, or, and that either you're not going to get caught lying or you're going to tell the truth. So the fact that Cindy and George Anthony don't even volunteer to take a polygraph test and just refuse.
Mm-hmm.
And then Casey obviously refuses, is interesting. And they just flat out refuse and never to this day took a polygraph because polygraphs aren't 100% accurate, but they will reveal deception.
Mm-hmm.
And it would be so interesting to hear these hard questions asked to both parents and Casey and see what the results would be.
Yeah, it is interesting that you can't like force people to do that.
Because, man, I'm sure we'd find out a lot more shit.
Oh, I'm sure.
And we'd find out a lot more about the parents that were not being told.
Mm-hmm.
So you had alluded to this earlier, but the nanny that Casey had said took her child, Zenaida,
mm-hmm.
the actual woman files a defamation lawsuit against her.
Yeah.
Which rightfully so. Like, God, trying to accuse me of kidnapping your child and possibly murdering them. Like, what the hell?
And because it became such like a thing on the media, Zanny the nanny, that she felt her reputation was damaged, which honestly, come on, it probably wasn't.
Yeah.
It's not like that many people are like, oh, you're the nanny. Like, I mean, that's why her trial never went through.
Yeah. The case got dismissed.
Her case got dismissed. Yeah. So,
because I mean,
it is just like fucked up to just randomly pick a name in a phone booth or phone book and like blame someone. That's pretty bad.
Yeah.
Casey did not give a fuck.
No. And I think this got overlooked a lot too, is the fact that she was in and out of jail a few times for other unrelated charges to her daughter's disappearance. The lying to investigators, the petty theft, and the use of the forged check.
Mm-hmm.
She was in and out of jail like a couple times during this whole investigation of her disappearance of her child.
Know that.
Because of basically lying and being deceitful and just, not giving a fuck. And
bullshitting.
Just, ultimate bullshitter.
Wasting everyone's time and resources.
Yeah. And I mean, investigators are starting to like piece it together and they're like, all right, she's definitely a suspect. Like, there's some major red flags being raised.
I mean, I think she was a suspect from the jump just because she didn't report her missing for 31 days.
Yeah,
I mean, I would automatically assume anyone who just doesn't report their kid missing is a suspect. That's weird. It's suspect.
Yeah.
It's suspectful.
Suspectful?
Suspicious.
Oh my Lord. Suspicion. Yes.
It's suspicious.
Yes. Close. Suspicious. So then on October 14th, 2008, Casey Anthony is indicted by a grand jury on charges of first-degree murder, aggravated child abuse, aggravated manslaughter of a child, and 4 counts of providing false information to police. She is arrested again later that day, and Judge John Jordan orders that she be held without bond. And because this is a capital crime, Casey Anthony faces possible death penalty at this point.
And it's Florida.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this was like the biggest mistake of all time because reasons that we'll explain.
Yeah. They definitely went hardcore with the charges. And it kind of backfires, as we'll find out.
Mm-hmm.
But they ended up dropping the charges of child neglect because they got to a point where they assumed that the child was dead. And when she's arraigned a few days later, she pleads not guilty to all charges.
Okay.
So during this time in October, police are extracting evidence from Casey Anthony's trunk of her car, and they report evidence of body decomposition and chloroform in the back, which is interesting. And, chloroform is not totally uncommon to being found inside of a trunk because chloroform's in a lot of different types of chemicals and cleaning products and things like that.
And especially car cleaning stuff, I've heard. Cars related stuff.
Yeah, car related stuff, exactly. And if you don't know what chloroform is, it's a chemical that can render somebody unconscious very easily when put over the face or mouth. You inhale it and then you're out like that. So it is used and has been used in kidnappings in the past. So police are like, it's interesting that along with decomposition, there's also chloroform. What happened back here, you know? And meanwhile, we still don't know where Caylee is. It's, she's been gone for months now. And a group called the Texas Echo Search came up to Florida with hundreds of volunteers and created like a search grid in order to look for Caylee or look for her remains, but nothing is found. So they end up stopping their search because they ran out of money and resources and just was like, we're not finding anything. And
they spent a ton of money trying to find her. A ton of
time and money trying to find her.
Because they all had to come from Texas. Imagine the amount of money they spent.
Oh, yeah. And they don't find anything, which is interesting. And then in November, the Anthony family's private investigator, Dominic Casey, searches the area where Caylee's remains later are found, and the search is videotaped. And the family's attorney denies asking Dominic Casey to search there. The defense questioned who sent him to the area, and he said that a psychic gave him the tip. According to the prosecution, the area was under several inches of water at the time. So it's just an interesting thing to think about that he went to the area before the remains are found, to the area where they were, and they videotaped him like walking around there
in that area. Yeah.
And he knew somehow, maybe he didn't know, but thinking about this
on the defense side,
like, did he know where he was going? Like, did he know the area he was in?
Maybe he did.
Where she might be found?
Which there's a lot of talk about how it's possible her defense team possibly could have known what really happened and where she really was all along.
Well, that's what they do, though. And a lot of people don't realize this, but a lot of defense lawyers will be like, if you want me to represent you and push as hard as I can for you, you need to tell me the truth.
Yep.
I need to know the truth about what happened so I know best way to protect you.
Yeah.
And that's part of that, like, confidentiality between your lawyer and you, is that you can tell them stuff and they can't just go like run to the police and tell the police. Like, so she could have confessed or whatever and said exactly the story, what happened. And Jose Baez knew this. So he, orchestrated things the way that he did.
So why would he have their search people why would you want video of them walking around near the body though?
I don't know. Maybe they wanted to go get a look at it before authorities did to make sure there was nothing incriminating or things like that.
Why would they film themselves there?
I don't know.
That's super odd.
So that it doesn't look suspicious, or I don't know. Or maybe he didn't really know.
So at this point, her body was kind of underwater.
There was a couple inches of water there in the area.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what they find later too, is that it is underwater. So this is where I wanted to show the like crazy visitation video of Casey and her parents talking in jail, because it's super interesting. So we'll go ahead and play that.
Any stuff you want to talk to me about? Anything?
It's just nice hearing everything that's going on. I mean, I don't know what to say except I miss you guys, and I love you, and
I know you do. I love you too. I love you more than anything.
Person. I know, Dad. I want to see that little girl. I want to hear Caylee laugh. I want to be with my baby. That's my focus. Her birthday's in just a few days.
Yeah, it is. Just a few days away. And remember, we wanted to have that little one, just like taking her to a park or something, and just be the immediate family. But now we want to have this great big one. So,
Casey, we have to find her before her 3rd birthday.
Mom,
That's coming up fast.
I know, we have a couple weeks.
I don't want to wait another minute.
I don't want to wait another minute. I want her to be found, whether I'm still stuck in here or not. I don't care.
I think once she's found, then you can tell everybody what you know, and you'll be released. Don't you think?
Potentially, I don't know. Yuri has it set in his mind that I've done something.
Well, he thinks you guys did something to Caylee. All I'm trying to do is find Caylee for both of us.
Oh, I know.
For all of us. And I'll do whatever it takes.
I feel the exact same way. That's exactly what I've been saying. I don't care what I have to do. When I told them I would lie, I would steal, I would do whatever by any means to get her back. That's exactly how I feel. It's the truth.
Well, what do you think about that? Thoughts?
It's just so interesting how convincing she can be when she lies. I've said it before, but like, she has to know at that point. She does know 100%, no matter which way you slice this case, no matter which theory you end up going with at the end. Casey knew at this point that she was not alive.
Yeah.
And she's just lying in these clips. Straight lying to her poor mother, who's like, we need to find her before her 3rd birthday. I mean, God, what denial Cindy was in.
Yeah.
Such denial.
Yeah, she was. She did not want to believe that her daughter could have anything to do with her granddaughter's disappearance.
If we just find her before that 3rd birthday, everything will be okay.
And what I'm thinking about too is I'm thinking back to like Chris Watts and his behavior and how calm and collected he was, and just not expressing any ounce of normal emotion or reaction to your child being missing, you know, and it all leads you to believe that subconsciously they know what really happened. Yeah. So they're not able to express those normal reactions because their mind is so fucked in that moment that they can't go there. You know, they can't even show that because they're in their head. They're like wrestling internally, probably like, oh my God, I know what happened. I know, you know, she's probably not alive. And here I am telling my mom that we got to find her.
She's always getting frustrated. Yeah. You can tell she's almost feeling frustrated with the whole situation, that she's in there and they're all looking for her.
And it's very much about her, Casey, and her getting out of there and stuff. It's not about how's the search going and the whole like.
Or here's what, you know, one time Zanny said this to me. One time she said this. Yeah. Like, here's a clue. Here's a possibility. I've been sitting here in jail thinking about this. So literally nothing. Dude.
Nothing
She's
at
just
all.
like, and when her mom was like, hopefully, you know, we can find her and then you'll just tell them everything you know and then you'll go home.
Yeah. And she was like, she paused and looked down.
Because she knew that's not going to happen.
She was like, potentially.
And she didn't want to tell her mom, like, yeah, that's what's going to happen, because she knew. There's no way that was going to happen. I think she already knew it at that point. I think she started to know that, like, time is, like, dwindling on her.
Yeah, her timer's running out.
Yeah.
Just like in all the other situations she's been in, her timer's running out.
And she's just hoping that they don't find the body at this point.
Yeah, she's just hoping that she's just missing.
It is so much harder to go to trial to get a conviction without a body.
It is.
My gosh, we have learned that with Sarah's trial. I mean, Alyssa's trial, and Sarah's running it. You know, she's not been able to get anything done because they don't have a body. And she's told over and over again, like, without a body, you're not going to be able to do anything.
Right.
So if they don't find a body, Casey knows her chances of getting away with this,
if she
are a lot greater.
In fact, had something to do with her disappearance, you know, allegedly at this point. You know? So yeah, I mean, it's very interesting. And just honestly though, I get weird vibes from George from watching that. I know you think he's like really trustworthy and he seems like a straightforward person, but I get some kind of deceitful vibes from him. And in that video, even just how he's talking, and he's so nonchalant about it too.
I think he's very realistic, and he knew that she was already gone. I think that was the difference. But yeah, I mean, I want to talk about George. There's a lot I want to say about George after that clip, especially, but because we haven't even explained any of that theory, that's not going to make any sense.
Okay. Well, let's get on.
We're going to need to revisit that theory, that video clip though, specifically when we get to that part, because I do have some things to point out from that.
Okay. So the time is now December 11, 2008, and a fourth tip. So there's 4 tips that came in from Roy Kronk, the meter man. And this 4th tip comes in December 11, 2008. And he says that he believes he found skeletal remains of what appears to be a small child 1/4 mile from the Anthony home.
And this is so crazy to me now, knowing that he had reported it so many times, because he ended up having to move the body. He wanted to see what it was.
He was probably curious that something was out there. And
he's like, well, they haven't been here. I've reported it several times. Let me just go check it out for myself.
Right. I think that's exactly his thinking, was that this is really weird. Yeah. I'm just going to kind of investigate this myself because I've kind of reported it and that it could be this because that's what it looked like, but nobody's come out. So maybe it's just an animal. I'm sure he was just kind of like,
he didn't know what
busy
it was.
And just was like, I'll leave it be. I don't know. Because you're not thinking when you find a skeleton in the woods that it's going to be a human skeleton. You're thinking, oh, it's probably an animal. And this was like thick Florida woods too. So there's clearly animals and alligators and shit out there eating stuff. So you're not thinking human, you're thinking an animal. But yeah, then this is the day when he calls, he has his emergency dispatch call 911 to report this skeletal remains. And
because he finally poked this stick in there. And God, he gets so much shit too for that. Like in the actual trial, they were able to really use that to their advantage in the defense side.
Well, they said they
contaminated the crime scene.
Not only that, they went after him and said he moved the body or something. Like they took it as far as like he was somehow involved with the disappearance because he knew it was there. And he was there over and over.
Tried reporting it 4 times. That's the one thing that no one seems to mention. I can't believe I had never even heard of that.
Yeah. So here's that 911 call from the meter man.
Yes, this is Orange County Utilities Emergency Dispatch. We found a human skull Oh, my gosh.
I know. We got is it a meter reader? Yes. I'm going to let you speak right now with the representative from our field services. This is Benny with Orange County Utilities.
Hey, Benny.
Hi. I'm going to let you speak with Rusty Spare, and everything is recorded. Here he is.
How are you doing?
Hey, Rusty.
One of my meter readers supposedly has found a skull of a that he believes is human.
What's the location, please?
It's right off of Suburban and Chickasaw in the Kelly Anthony area, right by the
school. Do you have a specific address for me or not?
No, it's right by the school. If you take
You are.
Yeah, he's
Suburban and Goldenwood?
Well, Suburban and Chickasaw.
Chickasaw, I'm sorry.
Yeah, and the school is right there. I can't think of the name of the school. Just go right straight down. It dead ends right into the woods. Okay. It'll be on the east side of Chickasaw, Suburban.
East side of Chickasaw. And what is your party's name that we're going to meet with?
His name's Roy, R-O-Y, Kronk, K-R-O-N-K.
He's not touching this, I hope.
No,
K-R-O-N-K. And he's
a meter reader.
Meter reader?
Yeah, and I'll just tell him to stay at that location and just stay away from everything.
Okay. And if you can, try to stress to him to please not draw attention to the area.
Okay.
And that would be great, just in case it is something. It may be nothing, but just in case.
So, yeah, human skull found. And did you notice that in that call, he said near the Caylee Anthony area, like the search area? Everybody knew that area was like the search area for Caylee Anthony. Mm-hmm. It's really weird that they didn't find it before, but I think it was because it was underwater. I think the skeletal remains.
But how did Roy see it enough to call and then they couldn't see it?
I don't know.
I feel like it was probably just like not taken seriously or not. No one looked or they miscommunicated about the location. I mean, no one met up with him.
Yeah.
But it could have just been missed. I mean, a lot of things that get reported to the police, they don't even have the resources or the time to follow up with everything.
Yeah, that's true.
So they may not have.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe like the first time they didn't, the second time there was water. I mean, who knows?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they purposely left her there or anything. Like, I don't think it's any like
I don't
corruption.
Think,
but it's definitely some shitty work there.
Yeah.
Bad oversight.
And also the remains were scattered out. That wasn't like it was like a little pile or anything.
Right.
Like everything had kind of become separated. Mm-hmm. And I mean, they found the skull first, mm-hmm. and then the rest of the bones and stuff were nearby, but it decomposed to bones in a seemingly short amount of time. I mean,
it's because it's Florida. I mean, it's so wet down there and
it's hot, and wet.
And it was there for a long time.
And there's animals and stuff.
Let's see, probably sometime, they think she died probably in like June or May. I can't remember.
Yeah, June.
Sometime one of those two.
Yeah.
No, I think it was probably May, right? At that point. I don't know if it was 31 days. I don't remember. But
it was end of June. It was like, so.
Yeah. Well, I guess no one knows exactly when she died, but it was sometime in that point. And so till December, that's a long time in Florida conditions. So obviously a body's going to just fall apart.
Yeah.
Break down really, really quick.
And that's what happened. So at first they didn't know whose remains it were, but several days later, police announced that the DNA testing confirmed that the remains belonged to Caylee Anthony, which is just so sad that that's where she ended up. This cute,
such a cute little kid. My grandma was so upset over this case. And my grandma's like, she doesn't even really like true crime. She just likes news, anything news related. And she lives in Florida. And she was just so upset about Caylee. Like, she was so connected to her. That baby. Remember she would talk to her, talk about her like that. And that's how people were about this case. And that's one thing we should really mention here is like, people were really, really obsessed with this, even before the trial started. My grandma had been watching this for years before we had even heard of it. Just following it from when she first was reported missing.
Yeah.
And then when they found her body.
The local news was first covering it. Yeah.
Yep. It was like a big thing in Florida. Like, everyone was super, super, especially once they found her. And there was major hate towards Casey. We didn't even mention that. In the beginning, when she was before she was even brought into jail, there were literally people outside of her house, like screaming at her, screaming at the family.
Baby killer. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So.
Yeah. They got harassed like crazy.
Yeah. It was just people. It was just the media involvement in this and people's interest in this as like a public drama was insane. Yeah. Like, next level.
Like OJ Simpson type situation.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Almost to the point of OJ. I mean, we'll talk about it later, but even at the trial, that's when it really started to get crazy. That's when way more people knew about it, because that's when it kind of went to the whole rest of the country.
Yeah, it really became nationalized. At that point.
On HLN every night. It was on all the time.
Yep.
And people were like literally buying tickets and stuff.
Yeah, to get into the courtroom and stuff.
A raffle, and then people would get tickets and then sell them. Like there was mobs outside of the courthouse waiting to get in, to hopefully get a public seat, because the way with Florida's laws are, that's why there's so many true crime cases that have a lot of information that are really interesting, with tons of videos, tons of court footage. Is like everything's public there.
Released, yeah.
So, and like the public was allowed to just come in, like you could literally book your seat pretty much for the show. And people did. It was crazy how into it everyone was.
Mm-hmm.
Like just hours and hours of coverage of it too.
Yeah.
Like HLN, that's all they covered for like weeks.
Well, it's a mystery, right? It's a huge mystery. Everybody loves a mystery. And this one was just, no one had any idea, well, I guess people immediately thought Casey.
Yeah.
But everybody was so confused as to why this wasn't just like a slam dunk case, and why weren't they just like,
Yeah,
they
because
were pressuring law enforcement to,
it seems pretty obvious. You didn't report her for 31 days. There's got to be a reason.
Right. What's going on? Yeah.
So people automatically, there was a major like mob mentality towards Casey for sure.
Yeah.
From the beginning, she was guilty to the public immediately.
Right.
Like right off the bat. And people didn't like her parents either, because they didn't go against her right away. So they didn't like that.
Right.
So people were literally standing outside of their yard, just screaming at them. Her mom, Cindy, would have to like go outside. There's clips of her like fighting off the paparazzi, or not even, the paparazzi, just randos outside, just random people with signs and shit outside that she had to like get off her property. I remember in one video clip, she's out there like, all you maggots, get off my lawn.
Yeah.
Just
and George was like rolling around with a gun and stuff. He actually got like his gun confiscated from him like a little while back. And it violated Casey Anthony's bail. They had like an issue with her bail because he got busted like on city property with a gun, because he said he was going to use it on people if, they'd stop harassing him and stuff.
People were crazy.
It was crazy, man. I mean, it's already crazy in Florida. So you can imagine people get pretty riled up. Yeah. People get riled up down there.
You ever want to be entertained, just turn on any local Florida news station. It's wild.
It is wild.
And the more south you go, like more towards Miami, the crazier that shit gets.
It is, dude. It's the truth, though. I mean, wild. Anybody that lives in Florida would back that up, I would say. Because it really is. The news is crazy. Just, it's got to be the heat and stuff, because people just do some wild stuff down there, man.
I don't know what it is.
It's crazy.
Yeah, because like that didn't happen with the Chris Watts trial. Like people weren't buying tickets, which I don't think you can go in Colorado. I don't think you can
it was very closed.
But there weren't people like outside like chanting around with signs. It doesn't happen in all cases. This was really, really rare. The amount of people that cared about this case was like abnormal. OJ Simpson makes sense because it's OJ Simpson.
Right.
It was a huge case. Plus it was like just the whole racial debate. It was a whole big thing for everyone. That makes sense. But this was just kind of like a random case. There's many like it. There's a lot like it.
Typical type of case. I mean, disappearances of children happen all the time. Why doesn't every single one of those cases get blown up to a national media spectacle in a way? Like, why doesn't it happen?
Even the Diane Downs one didn't have like people.
Not as much. No, not as much as this. And that's, So it's really just crazy, man. But we're starting getting into 2009, and some key events that happened in 2009 was that in January of 2009, police discovered George Anthony, who had been text messaging family members, despondent and possibly under the influence of alcohol and medication, in a Daytona Beach hotel room. They later found a 5-page suicide note, and in fact, George has actually admitted he tried to commit suicide that day. I think he said he took like 70 pills or something. He took like a bunch of pills and tried to kill himself.
I thought he wrote a note.
He did. He wrote a 5-page suicide note.
Okay, yeah. And just talked about how he needed to be with Caylee. And
he just was super sad. I mean, he was obviously depressed from what happened. And I don't know. I think possibly maybe he's showing some signs of guilt or feels guilty about whatever happened. Not saying that he directly did something, but maybe has knowledge that he can't deal with, or maybe withholding things from police.
Somehow involved in something.
Somehow is involved with the disappearance, and feels super guilty about it. So Yeah. So he tried to off himself at that point. So at this point, in April 2009, prosecutors reversed their stance and planned to seek the death penalty against her. They had actually took it off the table and then they brought it back on the table.
Which was not
kind of after the, remains were found and stuff. I think they were like, this warrants.
Well, yeah. Well, they thought we have a stronger case now that there's remains and they're found extremely close to her house, which, I think they felt a lot more confident. So they went for the death penalty.
The prosecution. Because it's really hard to successfully prosecute a death penalty case. It's hard to get somebody to the death penalty like without a ton of evidence,
especially without a body. Like they weren't even going to go for it before.
And the judge even said that too. He was like, he's like, I don't know why they went for that because that's really hard to do.
Yeah, it was the biggest mistake in this whole thing, I think, because it put so much pressure on this jury. We're jumping ahead, but yeah.
So after that, Caylee Anthony's autopsy report is released, and that's public too. So I went through it a little bit, and I'll just talk about a couple things in here that were interesting. So no drugs were found in the body, which there's no body. I mean, there's no body left. It's bone. So I don't know how, obviously it's going to be a no for that.
Yeah.
They said that they collected an almost complete skeleton of a young child with only multiple small bones missing. Small bones from the wrists and hands. But the report showed several overlapping pieces of duct tape on Caylee's skull. And the quote was, although there is no trauma evident on the skeleton, there is duct tape over the lower facial region still attached to head hair. The report said this duct tape was clearly placed prior to decomposition, keeping the mandible in place. So that was just like the medical examiner's notes on, their autopsy and what they reported, They also noted that the portion of her skeletal remains were intermixed with 2 plastic trash bags in a canvas laundry bag. The bags have a woodsy outdoor odor with no smell of decomposition, the report said. That's interesting when you think about it. Why wouldn't that smell like? Yeah. It just smells like the woods, and yet if the body was placed into it, wouldn't it smell like decomposition too? I don't know, man. That's really, really weird.
That is.
Yeah, so there's just all these other details that are kind of gruesome that you can read through. It's a little, especially since we're talking about a child here.
It's just so hard. It's so sad. She was such a cute little girl.
Yeah, it really is. It's extremely tragic, and I mean, they weren't able to even determine the cause of death either. They didn't find any trauma on the bones or anything to indicate she was like
barely anything there,
beaten or stabbed or something, but they weren't able to determine how she died. There's just not enough there. Like, you can only get so much from bones, and there's no like tissue or anything like that left over,
which makes you think if like, how we were talking about, what if the Jose Baez team knew that she was there? Maybe they really did, because they knew the longer she's there, the more decomposed she'll be, the less likely they'll be able to determine a cause of death.
She could have even been moved.
She could have even been moved.
Or bags replaced.
Could have.
Because the fact that the bags didn't smell like decomposition or didn't have, like, sounds like they didn't indicate that they were related to it is interesting. Like, if she was in the same bags for months and months and months in Florida heat, just completely decomposing inside of it, you would think that the bags would.
So one reason that Josh and I are really thinking about this here is, and we'll get more into this towards the end, is
I'm sure, people are like, oh, what the hell? You guys don't think she did?
No. Yeah, no. I think we do. I mean, we don't really know. We have a lot of question marks right now because there's some new information here. But basically, someone that was working on the defense team ended up switching and releasing a ton of information on Jose Baez, just like
kind of flips the script on him. He was working for him during the trial, but then afterwards he wrote like a book, I believe, a tell-all type thing.
And he basically said that he did know that the body was there, that they did know that it was there.
Right.
So,
they were hoping that the prosecution wouldn't find it.
Yeah, I think that's what they were hoping too.
But how did they know? Who told them? Clearly somebody told them where she was.
If Casey put it there, it's very, very possible she told them. Like you said, they probably said, hey, I will represent the slimiest fucks in the world. I don't care what you did. Tell me, and I will still protect you, but you have to tell me the truth or else I'm not working for you. And she probably did.
She probably did.
Because
and that's why the
way that she's reported on, it's reported that she was very, very close with Jose Baez and that he was almost controlling of her.
Yeah.
And
kept her, like, she followed like everything he said. Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go. And guess why that happens? Is because he had that conversation with her. You are on my terms. I will get you out of this. He probably promised her, like, I'll get you off. I'll get you, you know, you won't go to prison for the rest of your life or face death penalty. But here's what I need in exchange. And then he gave his, you know, the couple things. And one of that being, I control you. I tell you what to do. You listen to everything I say. Or else, kind of, you know, like, which is a pretty slimy thing to do for a lawyer. You know, that's not typical lawyer behavior, but this is Jose Baez.
Do you think OJ's team really knows what happened? Do you think he had to tell them the truth?
I think so. I think there's a possibility. Because if you think about it, those guys are on your team and they have to know every angle that the prosecution could possibly come at you with. And, or if there's a possibility you could go up on the witness stand. Yeah. That's another thing. And you're cross-examined by prosecutors, that could be game over for you. Yeah, so
you have to know.
You really do have to tell. I'm pretty sure they always do that. They're like, hey, this is confidential, but I need to know what happened, no matter how you're implicated in it. Because at the end of the day, that's their job. Their job as an American, you know, is to defend you in the court of law, and they're on your team. You hire them to work for you, and of course, if you're accused of something you don't want, you know, you want to get rid of that charge or whatever.
That seems so crazy. It seems like there should be a law that, like, if your client tells you something, though, that, like, proves them guilty, you should just tell the truth, tell the judge. I don't know. Like, that seems so crazy to me.
But then
you
the
can basically be an
rigged,
accomplice, you know,
to
murder legally.
Sort of. Yeah. I mean, sort of, I guess. I don't know if that's right or not, but yeah, I mean, in theory, it sounds like.
I mean, I guess you're probably technically not actually supposed to know where a body is. And like, if he actually did that, that's probably not allowed.
Yeah. And I think it just depends on the attorney too, right? I think certain attorneys would maybe not go as far as he did.
There's probably people that are more slimy.
But there are. Yeah. I mean, there's a whole show called Better Call Saul because.
Oh, I love that show. Such a good show.
He'll go to like the ends of the earth for, you know, his clients and stuff, even breaking the law, you know. It's like that, you know, we laugh about that because it's a funny show, but the reality is that happens, man.
Yeah.
So could happen in this case. And I mean, at this point, Casey's like so fucked. Like, if she's got these massive felony charges, death penalty on the table, she's got her life is in jeopardy. So I think she probably realized, like, my only hope in this case, if I'm in fact guilty of all this, is to let him know everything and have somebody else on my side who's gonna, you know, fight for me and help me get out of this sticky situation, you know. So let's go ahead and get into 2010 because the trial doesn't even start to 2011. There's just a couple things that happened in 2010. This trial spans over multiple years, and in April of 2010. Or first, in the beginning of the year, she pleaded guilty to her check charges, 13 fraudulent check charges. And she served a little bit of time for that. But then in April, Casey Anthony jailhouse letters and inmate police interviews are released. And an inmate told police that Casey said in jail that she used to, quote unquote, knock out Caylee, perhaps with some kind of sedative, so she could go out at night. The inmate also claimed Casey knew details about her daughter's remains before police said they were made public. So right there, I mean,
I wonder what kind of details she knew. What details are there? There's really.
And why would an inmate say this? I mean, what do they really have to gain? It's not like they're going to get out or something if they.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's hard to believe.
Right. Are you going to believe an inmate because they could be a liar? And
well, no, not only that, but it is Casey Anthony. They might just like want some attention.
Right.
You know, like to be like, oh, I know something about Caylee, you know?
True.
And why would she tell any of them that? Like, oh yeah, I used to knock her out. Like, that sounds like stupid as fuck. Why would you say that? I don't know. I mean, it's possible. She didn't seem like the smartest of all people.
That she got comfortable enough in prison with an inmate to be like, oh yeah, I used to knock my daughter out. Just gave her like
that seems weird.
NyQuil and went to the bar. Like,
Yeah, that's
like, how do you even get in that?
Probably tell people.
And why would she seems smarter than that to me. Like, she seems like she probably would have kept her mouth shut in jail. And
yeah, she probably knew that like a lot of people
would go around blabbing and shit like that. That would,
I don't know. It's hard to believe things because I have seen so many cases where people in jail just make shit up just to get in on it. I mean, a lot of times there isn't any reward or a reason. They don't get anything out of it. Maybe they just literally want to be pulled out of their cell and like interviewed.
Yeah.
And get some attention for a few hours.
It's true.
Like, you never know.
People are desperate. People are desperate. Yeah. Will do almost anything.
Mm-hmm.
So also in 2010, that was notable was the judges switched. Judge Stan Strickland, who was the original judge on her case, stepped down after Casey Anthony's defense team filed a motion accusing him of having inappropriate conversations with a writer. And because of this, he said that he, couldn't be impartial anymore, and he stepped down from the case, and Judge Belvin Perry Jr. was appointed to take over the case. And he went on to say that the state would continue to seek the death penalty. And then on the second anniversary of the night Caylee was finally reported missing, July 15, 2010, Casey, Lee, George, and Cindy Anthony all appear in court for an emotional evidentiary hearing. And after dramatic testimony by Cindy Anthony, who recounted the panic night she learned Caylee had been missing for a month, a Florida judge ruled the 911 call Cindy made immediately afterward, in which she discussed the dead body smell in the car Casey Anthony had driven, would be allowed in Casey's murder trial. So this was the ruling that allowed that clip, which we showed earlier, to even be played in the courtroom. What happened in 2010? They looked at it and they're like, okay, this is legitimate evidence. We should show this during the trial.
Mm-hmm.
And then throughout this time, the family is continuing to, like Cindy's going on the Today Show, where she actually calls Casey a victim and claims she's not involved with what happened to Caylee's remains.
Yeah, she was in some serious defense mode of her daughter.
Yeah. So by the end of 2010, Casey's gearing up her defense team. She's getting ready to go to trial. They had a team of 6 attorneys. Her main 2 defense attorneys were Jose Baez and Cheney Mason. But before we get into the trial, I'd like to quickly thank our last sponsors for today.
So we all know that scent is actually normally tied to memories. There are so many memories in my childhood where I associate specific smells of like soap or food with a memory. And there's this one soap that every time I smell it, I don't know what kind of soap it is, but when I smell it, I always know that it reminds me of this beach house I used to go to as a kid in the summer, and it reminds me of my grandparents and just brings me right back. So I wanted to talk about Fleur and how you can create some special memories with their perfect fragrances. So Fleur is different than most fragrances on the market today. All of their products are hypoallergenic, cruelty-free, vegan, and sustainably sourced with recycled materials, which is why we love Fleur. All of their scents have different notes that are part of nature. So it really brings you back to the earth. And we also love that as earth signs over here. Their fragrances smell amazing. They're very clean. They're very bright. They all are very different. My personal favorite is Greylock. It's actually kind of a blend of my 2 favorite things, the mountains and the ocean. It's a blend of pine and sea. What we also love about Fleur is it can be used by anyone. It is gender neutral, so male and females can use this. We love how transparent Fleur is. They list all their ingredients. There's no sketchiness behind the brand at all. It's very upfront. So make new scent memories today with Fleur. Go to fleur.com today and use the code MILEHIGHER to get 20% off your first Fleur sample set. You can pick 3 scents to try and then get credit towards 1 full-size bottle of your favorite. That's code MILEHIGHER at fleur.com and your first 3 Fleur fragrance samples for 20% off. So that's PHLUR.com.
So if you've ever owned your own business, you know that it can be a ton of fun, but sometimes it can be a lot of work because you're having to do almost everything on your own. And sometimes it can be extremely hard to get through your to-do list. I know for me personally, I oftentimes struggle to get through my to-do list because I cannot stay organized, it seems like. What's awesome is that we're in the modern age of technology, and there is now some software that is there to help you with running your business. So HoneyBook is an online business management tool that organizes your client communications, bookings, contracts, and invoices all in one place, which is really helpful because it's so easy to not keep track of those things and get them lost like I have in the past. And having them all in one place just makes it extremely simple and helps your business run better. HoneyBook makes running your business simple because they provide you with professional templates, e-signatures, and built-in automation, which keeps everything on track and makes you look good, because we all want to look good. They can even consolidate services you already use like QuickBooks, Google Suite, Excel, and MailChimp or Gmail, which is super interesting because I use all of those products actually, and it allows you to tie them all together in one place instead of having to go to each of the individual applications each time to access different documents and information. It's the #1 choice for client and business management for freelancers and business owners. Save time and do more of what you love with HoneyBook. And right now, HoneyBook is offering our listeners 50% off your first year with promo code MileHigher. Payment is flexible, and this promotion applies whether you pay monthly or annually. Go to honeybook.com and use promo code MileHigher for 50% off your first year. That's honeybook.com, promo code MileHigher. So the Casey Anthony trial actually kicked off in 2011, and in May, the trial begins with the jury selection, and the process of seating a jury took 11 days, which that was like a huge problem because this case had so much media coverage and stuff. It was hard to even find people in Orlando that had never heard of, the trial or the case at all to be on the jury, because you can't, get a jury that's already made up their mind that somebody's guilty. That doesn't work. So
one of the prosecution attorneys said that it was Ashton. Ashton, is that his name?
Mm-hmm.
He said that it was so hard to find people that it almost was impossible. It was impossible. Everyone had heard about this in the state of Florida. So they ended up having to have a lot of people that were just unbiased on the case, but did know about it. And so those people that know about it, but are still unbiased, are going to be really, really hard to convince. And so they started to realize that the jury was made up of people who were kind of almost biased that she didn't do it. Like, to make it fair for her, they wanted to try to find people that weren't going to just automatically assume she did it, which was like everyone.
Yeah.
So they found the most difficult jury ever.
It was a really tough situation for the prosecution, for sure. Because I think they even had to like bust the jurors in. They stayed there.
They sequestered them.
They're from out of town. Yeah.
Yep. And they sequestered them too. So they weren't allowed to see their families or watch the news for like months. This went on for a long time.
Yeah, it's really crazy.
What if, like, can you say no? What if you're like,
no. This is like if you're picked to be on a jury, you're.
But what if you're
in.
like, all right, I'm going to refuse to like stand up. I'm just going to lay down during the whole thing then.
Well, I mean, you're sitting down.
No, I mean, like, what if you do something to like ruin it for them? Be like, okay, well, I'm just going to go in there and cry or yell.
I don't know. I think they just like hold you in contempt of court and stuff. Like you get
like
charged.
Go to jail?
Yeah, you get like charged. Like it's like a civic duty. Like once you get put on a jury, you have to be on the jury. Like because think about it. If they have to dismiss a juror, that fucks up the whole thing. Like they have to like, so it's a big deal. And who wants to be the guy that gets kicked off the jury for this case?
Yeah.
For being just an asshole or something.
Yeah.
Like, that doesn't look good either.
It doesn't look good.
So the actual jury, after the 11 days, ended up being 5 men and 7 women, plus 3 men and 2 women as alternate jurors, which are kind of like in case, we need to, they're backups essentially for that very situation you were talking about. But on May 24th, 2011, the trial begins in Orlando, Florida. The prosecution states that Casey Anthony used duct tape to suffocate Caylee Anthony. That was really their, I think they were trying to use that as like the murder weapon in a sense, because that really helps your case
to have
if you can have a weapon,
or just
or something that explains.
They just try to come up with some type of image for them.
But what was crazy is the Casey's defense just completely went a different, and that was the thing, is like Jose Baez was smart in the fact that he brought in a theory that just completely rocked everybody and caused people to have a ton of doubt in the prosecution's argument.
So out of the blue.
So this is what the defense contended. They said that Caylee Anthony actually drowned in her grandparents' swimming pool, and that Casey's father, George Anthony, warned Casey she would be in prison for life for child neglect, and then covered up the death, which is the reason why she failed to report the incident for 31 days. And also because George Anthony had sexually molested Casey as a child And so she had this habit of hiding her pain and lying because of this. They used that to explain why she lied so much. Yeah, exactly. Because they're like, we understand she's a liar. We get that. But here's why. It's because her dad
taught her to lie. Because she's lying for him from a young age. That was the whole theory.
Yeah.
Which he denies this.
Yeah.
It's never been proven. There is no actual proof.
No.
We have heard reports that Casey's met with therapists and has also told them the same thing.
Well, yeah. During the trial, she met with two independent psychologists. When you're
in this, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me though if she could lie to everyone else. Why couldn't she lie to a therapist as well?
It's very true. Yeah.
So, I mean, it really does fit her narrative. And I feel like Jose Baez was kind of like, probably had to talk with the whole family. Like, look, if I want to defend her, I'm going to have to, like, someone's going to have to go down. Like, we need some explanation for this.
Yeah, I believe that too. Yeah. That he had to kind of get thrown under the bus.
I think he kind of knew that was kind of the deal. And he still got to get up there and defend himself and say, I didn't do it. But it tarnished his reputation big time. And I mean, he might have done it. We don't know.
Yeah, I mean, there's just some interesting thoughts with that for sure. But another thing was that Jose Baez admitted that Casey had completely lied about the story of the nanny named Zenaida Fernandez Gonzalez as a part of that. They just straight out came up like, yeah, she lied about the nanny because of that, which is interesting. And I think he's a convincing attorney, Jose Baez. Like totally. he comes with some authority. Like the way
almost
that he presents
entertainment.
Stuff. Yeah.
He seems like he could be a movie character.
Yeah.
He gets up there and then when he goes in his little spiels,
he's like Saul from the show. Like
kind
of like animated and like
totally. I mean, and he was really, I feel like her prosecution team, they seem like nice people, but I feel like against Jose Baez, it was not the best possible team.
Yeah.
I mean, they really needed someone to play dirty back and they just were not ready for this. I feel like they didn't do a good job of many things I'll get to if I go into
Well, yeah. I mean, Jose Baez just poked so many holes into the prosecution story, like straight off the bat. Yeah. Another thing he said was he questioned whether Roy Kronk, the meter man who found the remains, actually removed them from elsewhere and questioned police motivations for pursuing a murder investigation.
Yeah.
So he raised so many questions as to like, it seems like you jumped on Casey right away. You didn't investigate the meter man or possibly other people that could have done it. You just settled right on Casey from the get-go, is what he said. And prosecutors actually called George Anthony as their first witness, and he denied to them ever having sexually abused his daughter Casey or covering up the death of Caylee. Like, I'm sure that was hard. If he is completely innocent, then that must have been just brutal. But over the ensuing days, the prosecution calls various friends of Casey Anthony who testify about her fabricated stories during June and July 2008 of having a job and employing a nanny for Caylee. A neighbor testifies actually that in mid-June 2008, Casey and a boyfriend borrowed a shovel from him to dig up a bamboo root. Interesting. A former boyfriend actually testifies Casey told him her brother, Lee Anthony, sexually groped her. George Anthony is called back to the witness stand where he says that he did not smell decomposition in Casey's car on June 24, 2008, and states he put duct tape over a hole in one of the plastic gas cans she had returned to him. So, yeah, he's continuing to deny the claims of the sexual abuse. And then the fact that he didn't smell the decomposition smell that Cindy smelled prior to that day is interesting. A tow truck company manager and George Anthony testify that from their experience, the smell from Casey's car resembled human decomposition. During cross-examination, George Anthony tells Jose Baez that he did not sexually abuse Casey again. This is in the following days. So they're just like, they're pounding him quite a bit. A former boyfriend of Casey testified about her normal behavior on June 16th, and Cindy Anthony testified that they swam that day that Caylee went missing, or that day she went missing. Yeah, and Caylee could get up the ladder into the pool. So they're asking about, they're cross-examining witnesses and trying to figure out, like, is this a plausible theory? Like, could she have accidentally drowned in the pool? And, they're saying yes. She could have. Because that's what the defense is saying, right? It's that she drowned in the pool and that it was like this cover up.
Which was so shocking to everyone. My gosh. People had no idea that was coming. The media was like, wait, what? That was crazy.
And then this was interesting. On May 31st, 2011, Cindy Anthony says her description of Casey's car smelling like a dead body was just a figure of speech. She completely like recounted what she said on that. Which was,
she said it was just like saying it was nasty, basically. Smelled like a dead body. I've never once said that about anything.
Completely reversed on that. And throughout June, they're just continuing to present different evidence to them, bringing more witnesses about Casey going to Universal or Orlando Resort, to the nanny not actually being a real person. Videotapes are shown of Casey lying to her parents in jail and denying to an officer in July 16, 2008 that Caylee had drowned in the pool, as he suggested, which is interesting. And then an FBI forensic scientist testifies the single hair removed from the car trunk was similar to a hair from Caylee's hairbrush and had root banding consistent with that from a decomposing body. You remember that? Like they showed the pictures of the hairs and how they were pointing out that there was like black at the end of the hair follicle.
Yes. Yeah, that was interesting.
And that is consistent with decomposition. So, so they're kind of creating some links like to the fact that there was something decomposing in that trunk. Like,
yes.
And that's what's so crazy is there is a lot of circumstantial evidence with this, like the decomposition in the trunk and the stains and things like that, the hair, like clearly something was back there. Something living was back there and then deceased.
At one point, I
don't know. It's just so bizarre. And then they did try to do like a chloroform test in there from the carpet. And then they took some samples of the air in there to try to like pull things from that in order to fly, which they found like a high level of chloroform in the trunk. But I mean, the defense is just going and like they hired their own experts and they just come back and they, Jose Baez goes and gets the top expert in all these different things. And they just come in here and are like, yeah, that's one possibility. But also the possibility is that this is totally normal. You cannot prove that the high chloroform and the decomposition are from Caylee Anthony's body.
Just creating so much doubt. Because at the end of the day, that's all he has to do is create doubt. He doesn't have to prove she didn't do it. He has to just put doubt that she did.
Exactly. That's all you have to do is create that doubt. And then on June 8th, computer analysts confirm a search for chloroform on the Casey's computer, March 17, 2008, and how to make chloroform on March 21st, 2008. Which they're saying is Casey, but then I think her mom said.
Yeah, well, basically her mom then later gets on the trial, on the bench. What is it called? On the stand. On the witness stand.
Yeah, on the bench.
On the bench. She gets on the bench. No, but she got up there and completely changed everything. She was like, that was me searching, actually.
Yeah.
She said that she was searching for chlorophyll. She's like, how the words just kind of like pop up, and you're like trying to play like she has no idea how a computer works.
Yeah.
She was like, I was trying to type in chlorophyll because my dog was eating bamboo leaves off of our plants in the backyard, which is so weird. Why wouldn't you just Google bamboo? Like if that were me, I'd type in, is bamboo toxic? Like she was like, I wanted to check the toxicity. So I typed in chlorophyll. Okay. That makes zero sense.
Come on.
And then she's like, and then because of that, it came up as like a related word on Google and it filled in as chloroform. And then I clicked that and I was confused and she tried to like say it was all her. But they also were able to show that she was at work during this time. She was clocked in at her job when these searches were made. So it would have been impossible, but they still somehow never proved that it was Casey on the computer.
Well, you can't prove who's behind the keyboard, right?
But she was on like AIM or MySpace, AIM or MySpace right after these searches were made. So Cindy wasn't on MySpace.
Right. But again, it's like so circumstantial, like you can't, it's not like there's hard evidence to see who was actually in front of the keyboard,
A lot of it was circumstantial, pretty much everything. That's the thing here.
Yeah. So the following day, a software analyst by the name John Bradley states someone used the Anthony computer to search the website scispot.com for chloroform 84 times on March 21st, 2008, which this is a while back before, she even goes missing, allegedly, and things like that. So this was, somebody was searching for these things a while back for the chloroform part. I think the other searches that are made are the day that she was gone and stuff too. As far as I can't remember. There's so many damn searches in this. It's so confusing.
The other searches. Yeah. Those were made on a different day.
So I think there might have even been multiple chloroform searches because according to this guy, chloroform was searched 84 times in March. So way before.
Why is she searching chloroform that much?
Well, he said that it could have been just an automatic page reloading. That the account could have just been like refreshing the page. And so that shows it over and over again in the logs of it being searched. But this was also the day that investigators show photographs of the remains, including of duct tape that appears to be over the mouth area. And one admits that duct tape might not originally have been on the mouth and could have shifted position as he collected remains. And supposedly, like during this time, like Casey Anthony just looks like visibly ill and upset as the photographs of her daughter being shown to the jury that day.
I wonder if I don't think they ever showed footage of that, did they?
It's buried in there. I don't even know
if they ever showed footage of her.
They did. It's buried in there though. Literally the whole trial is on YouTube. I'll link it.
I was going to say
11
the whole
hours
thing is on there.
11 hours of footage in there.
God.
Because that was the thing too, is they literally like live stream this on TV and stuff for everybody. The whole trial. You can watch the whole entire thing. The medical examiner states that the death is ruled a homicide because of the delay in reporting the disappearance and the fact that the body was hidden and the existence of the duct tape, but states under cross-examination she did not know how the child died. Crime scene investigators described similar maggots found in the car trunk and at the crime scene. So that is interesting. So the whole duct tape thing is starting to kind of fall apart, I think. As the trial goes on, the whole idea of Caylee Anthony being suffocated with duct tape starts kind of coming apart, that argument, because of the fact that it could have so easily been moved and it looked like it had been moved. And they even tested the duct tape for DNA and there was no DNA of anybody on it whatsoever, which would lead you to believe that it was never placed on a human and it was just on the bags or something and came loose or, somehow over time made its way onto the skull in the way that it did. And then it goes on. I mean, this trial goes on for days and days and days, and they're continuing to bring different FBI investigators onto it. And essentially the prosecution gets to a point, or actually, hang on, I'm missing a few things here. Let me go back a few. So in June 13th of 2011, an FBI examiner states a hair from the child's skull is consistent with, but not identical to, the single hair found in the trunk. The FBI agent could not find any fingerprints on the duct tape found near the remains, but initially did find adhesive in the shape of a heart on a corner of a piece of duct tape. Later, she could not find it again. So what's interesting, though, is the bags, I believe, the duct tape, and this heart sticker all were found in the Anthony home. The heart sticker, they actually went and found a sticker sheet of the exact heart sticker that was on there. And plus the other thing that I think I'm getting to is that
she cut a sticker out of the duct tape. That was a heart.
No, it was like a black heart sticker, like a separate sticker that was placed on it.
Oh, okay.
So it was like a separate thing. And then the FBI specialist said that the hair found in the trunk could have come from any member of the Anthony family. And so they couldn't say exactly whose hair it was. And they also said the heart-shaped stickers were found in Casey's room, but did not link them to the one alleged to be on the duct tape. So at this point, it's June 15th and the prosecution is resting its case. The defense makes a motion to acquit based on insufficient evidence a murder was committed, which the judge denies based on previous case rulings. So this is when the defense begins its case. The prosecution gets to give their whole case, their whole argument for it. And they thought they had enough between the forensic evidence and the duct tape and everything to, paint a picture of Caylee Anthony being suffocated and, being disposed of. But then the defense comes back and they just completely upend the entire prosecution's case. Pretty much everything they brought to the table.
Yep.
So they start by having crime scene investigators say that no blood was found in Casey's car or incriminating stains on her clothes. An FBI analyst states no DNA evidence was found in the car or at the crime scene. She states the FBI did a paternity test that showed Lee Anthony was not Caylee's father. They also stated that the heart-shaped sticker was found far from the body, which is interesting. And that another FBI forensic document examiner found no evidence of a heart-shaped sticker on the duct tape found near the remains. So that's what's interesting is like literally they contradict everything the prosecution.
Everything's so conflicting.
Yeah, everything is so conflicting. And so it's confusing. And as a jury, you're like already exhausted from being there for so long. You're like, wait a minute. Now these guys are coming back and they're like, wrong.
Yeah.
This is not what's going on. And smart on their part to bring in all these experts. They brought in a forensic entomologist to state that if there was a body in the trunk, there should have been hundreds or even thousands of blowflies trapped in the trunk as well. If there was like a dead body
I remember
in there.
this whole day. Oh my God, I remember them talking about flies for so long.
Yeah. So they're trying to dispute the evidence of the decomposition in the trunk, saying that it could have even been a dead animal or something like that. Not that if it was actually a human body in there, it'd be crazy back there. It would not be,
How long was she back there? That's the thing. It's like it may not have been that long.
I mean, it's kind of crazy though. There's like no DNA evidence that they got, like no like fingerprints or like whoever disposed. And this is why I go back to George a little bit because
we need to talk about that final theory.
All right, let me get through the defense's argument real quick.
Almost there.
Yeah, there's
this
so much.
This trial is just huge. I'm trying to let Josh just read. That's why I'm not talking a lot.
Yeah, just so I can get all of these things out so we can talk about what actually happened. So the defense calls a new witness, Dr. Werner Spitz, who questions the medical examiner's autopsy, including the failure to open the skull. And he says there was no indication the death was a homicide. So he brings in another medical examiner, and this guy is like I think he was on the O.J. Simpson. He was like this big time, shot medical examiner that he hired who had a lot of like reputation, things like that.
I remember that guy.
Because that's what you do is you come in, you bring a witness or an expert in to testify that's got more experience, is going to basically destroy the prosecution's expert witness. And that's exactly what they did. So this guy said he believes the duct tape was placed on the skull after decomposition and that the crime scene photos of the position of the hair on the skull were staged, possibly by the medical examiner. That's what's crazy too, is he insinuated that the medical examiner was trying to help the prosecution with their case. And then the defense called a forensic botanist, which challenged the prosecution's theory of when the body was placed at the crime scene. An expert in analytical chemistry who works with Dr. Vass challenges the process of testing for the presence of chloroform. So they just like poked holes in the prosecution witnesses at how they tested for the chloroform, the whole capturing the air out of the trunk. They poked holes in that. Like, that's not science. That's not legitimate. You can't trust those findings. Yeah, just really putting
so much doubt.
Yeah, huge amount of doubt into the jury. An FBI forensic examiner said that no dirt from the crime scene was found on shoes at the Anthony home or a neighbor's borrowed shovel. A toxicologist found no toxins in the hair from Caylee Anthony's skull. Another scientist testified that tests did not conclusively prove there was a body in the trunk, and that they could not find traces of chloroform in the car. And these are like FBI experts too that are saying this. The forensics experts found no hair in the trunk liner, showing signs of decomposition. She also testified the duct tape at the crime scene was dissimilar to that in the Anthony home. So we're literally just disproving all of these different things. So by the time that June 24th, 2011 rolls around, Cindy Anthony is recalled to the stand where the defense shows her a photograph of Caylee on the pool ladder. And she again mentions the ladder was in the pool on June 16th when she returned home from work that evening, adding that she called George to ask about it since she took out the ladder from the pool on the previous day after she had been in there swimming around with Caylee. The defense also showed the jury a picture of Caylee appearing to open a sliding glass door at her home, in which Sydney says Caylee was capable of opening the sliding door to the backyard and the pool, which was huge. And interesting that they're, saying all these things and, and I guess they're trying to, I think she's telling the truth, but I think it's also convenient that it lines up with Casey's defense as well.
Yeah.
That Caylee was, the possibility of her drowning in the pool is definitely a big one. Like
it definitely is a possibility. She did know how to open that door. Those pictures were a big deal that they were able to show that.
they actually had to briefly halt the trial to determine if Casey Anthony was competent to proceed with the trial. Or George was, or I'm sorry, if Cindy, I don't know if it's Cindy or George, but one of them, probably. Was it George? Yeah. To proceed with the trial. Or no. I'm sorry, Casey. It is Casey.
I was going to say competent. I was going to say maybe mentally stable for George.
No. It's competent. Yeah. Because I think she starts falling apart a bit after they're showing all this forensic stuff. I'm sure it was super hard, no matter what happened to see that, or she was acting or something. And so this is when she has the psychological evaluations, in which I think she talks more about the sexual abuse from an early age. She goes on and says all these different things that came out of how, her dad has been basically sexually abusing her whole life, essentially. And it's caused her to be this way, in short. And then we jump ahead here to June 29th, 2011. Cindy Anthony says Casey's response to the media theory that Caylee drowned was a surprise. Jose Baez asked George Anthony about his suicide attempt in January 2009, and the next day, the judge allows the jury to see the suicide note. Roy Cronk's son states that Kronk did say that finding Caylee Anthony would make him rich and famous, which is interesting. The Meaner Man also testified about why he had changed his story about lifting the skull. An expert on grief and trauma testified that pretending nothing had happened and partying was one of the many different ways people, especially young people, express grief. So the defense is just like lining up all of this doubt, like bringing all this doubt to the table that this could have been a totally normal reaction. The whole this was just how she was dealing with her daughter's disappearance and, accidental death, and that it wasn't really like a homicide that had happened. Yeah. Like that was the main thing, is disproving the homicide.
Accidental death. Yeah.
Because I don't.
But even in their theory, she knew.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why they have to admit that she was grieving.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
I mean, there's things I want to talk about, but again, we need to go over that George theory.
Yeah.
We're almost there.
So in July 2011, the prosecution continues rebuttal with two representatives of Cindy Anthony's former employer explaining why their computer login system shows Cindy was at work the afternoon. She said she went home early and searched her computer about chloroform. So I think there was multiple chloroform searches.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe they are referring to that one in March. But a police computer analyst says someone had purposely searched online for neck plus breaking.
Yeah.
But another analyst testifies she did not find evidence that Cindy Anthony had searched certain terms she claimed to have searched. An anthropology professor is recalled to rebut a defense witness on the need to open a skull during an autopsy. The lead detective states that there was no phone calls between Cindy and George Anthony during the week of June 16, 2008, but admits he did not know that George had a second cell phone. So all these different things are coming to light. There's so many things that just get unpacked during this trial. It's absolutely insane. So the judge ruled that during closing arguments, the defense could argue there was a drowning involved in the death of Caylee because there was sufficient evidence of that, but could not argue George had sexually abused Casey, which I think is fair because, again, there's not any evidence of that, and you can't just go around accusing somebody and just take their word for it and use that in the court of law.
Definitely not in court.
So the prosecution does an hour and a half of closing arguments, offering a timeline of events and asserting that Casey intentionally suffocated Caylee to death by putting 3 pieces of duct tape placed over her face. So like the mouth and nose was how they said it happened, which would just cause her to, give her the chloroform, knock her out, and then, let her die in her sleep, essentially, from asphyxiation.
Mm-hmm.
The alleged motive was that the child interfered with her partying lifestyle and spending time with her boyfriend. That was like the whole thing it rested on for motive. And just the motive does not hold up, I don't think.
Yeah. And I feel like there's probably not, I don't know. I don't really think that she purposely planned it. I lean more towards there was some type of accident. I don't really know if I think it's the pool. I think it was like she gave her something so she would go to sleep and she could go out, or she would take a nap or whatever it is. Something like that. But there's also reasons to think maybe it's not that.
There's so much. We're not even there yet. There's so much. It's crazy. But the prosecution states the defense's story that Caylee drowned and George encouraged Casey to cover up the accident made no sense. The defense counters with 4 hours of arguments insisting there was no proof of how Caylee died, challenging the prosecutor's most important evidence as fantasy, and emphasizing the reasonable doubt that Casey killed Caylee. It again insists that after the child drowned, Casey panicked and George Anthony made the death look like a murder and that he was the one who put the body in the nearby woods. Mm-hmm. So those are the two arguments at the end of the trial. Mm-hmm. But before it's all over, prosecutors Jeff Ashton and Linda Burdick present a rebuttal to the defense closing, telling jurors their forensic evidence had proved their case, while the defense made claims they did not prove. The case then goes to the jury, and Judge Perry Jr. issues final instructions. And after about 10 hours of deliberation, it's crazy. They only deliberated for 10 hours.
Which seems like a lot, but is not.
It's not for this long of a case.
No. They were expecting them to be gone for a couple days.
I think we could sit here for 10 hours and deliberate
I was
this
gonna
case.
Say, seriously.
And we haven't even seen all the evidence, and we're in the courtroom and saw all the things
that long.
It's just crazy. But I think it makes sense when you hear the verdict, because it's just insane. So on July 5th, after that long deliberation, Casey Anthony is acquitted of all felony charges. Mm-hmm. And the only charges she got were 4 misdemeanor charges for giving false information to a law enforcement officer.
And that was just absolutely shocking to people. Mm-hmm. I mean, really, I remember this moment so well, like so clear. I was sitting in my parents' bed watching it on their little TV. And I was so mad. I just remember like Googling it over. You were working at Best Buy.
Oh, yeah.
I kept calling you and you couldn't answer. And I was like freaking out. And I was like Googling on my phone, just like, is this possible? Like, is there anything they can do? Like, are they going to do another trial? Like, no, this is it. She's done. She's off.
People were appalled.
So pissed off. Like, I couldn't even believe it and I was all excited for the trial too. I remember being like, oh yeah, they're going to like read the verdict. The verdict came back so soon. I was like so pumped. And then when they read it, I just was like, oh my God, this is insane. Like, I don't think in my head I really even thought it was possible she was going to get off. But now that I know this much,
I don't think anybody thought she would be acquitted of all felony charges.
Yeah, that was just insane.
Even manslaughter, dude. Mm-hmm. She had first-degree murder, aggravated manslaughter, aggravated child abuse.
But a huge thing here is that they put her up for the death penalty, and so the jury's thinking like, do we have enough to?
A woman's life is on the line.
Yeah, and if they didn't do that, I think they would have been able to convict her. I think.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I don't know though. I think it was also the defense just did a stellar job at poking holes in the prosecution and just being able to rebut every single thing they brought to the table. And then obviously the closing arguments, like you can go watch it on YouTube. Like Jose Baez is so convincing and he just like completely like he does an excellent job at really laying it out to the jury about what had happened and explaining all of the questions that I think the jury had about how did she die? Where did she die? And by who? By whom? So, and the prosecution really didn't really have anything to back up their claims of Casey Anthony suffocating her child.
Yep.
So yeah, it's really crazy to me. So she's acquitted of all those charges, all those felony charges, and the judge sentenced her to 1 year in county jail and a $1,000 fine for each of the 4 misdemeanor counts, which is crazy.
And she'd already been in jail, so she I think got 10 days. After this, she had 10 more days to serve and then she was set free.
Yeah, it's crazy. So she was released on July 17th. Her verdict was, 10 days. You're right. July 7th. Yep. It was 10 days. 10 days for this.
Insane.
And then she got to walk. She only had $537 in cash.
Yep.
So obviously the world just goes crazy. I mean, this was so wild. People were so pissed.
People were hysterically crying outside of the office. Like people couldn't even talk. The office, the court. People were so fucking pissed. I remember my grandma was so mad. Like we talked on the phone and she was just so mad. Like how could this have even happened? I don't think anyone was ready for that. It was just insanity.
And the amount of people that so the jurors, they kept their names secret for like a few months after to see if it would blow over and stuff. But even after the jurors' names were released, they got death threats, like multiple death threats and letters and emails.
People
and
were
just like
so mad
pissed.
at them.
Like, how could you let this happen? Like, no justice was served at all.
And there's a lot of people that think that this is one of the best examples of our legal system and how it's supposed to work, and that this is an example of a trial that goes right. Like, this is literally how it's supposed to happen. There isn't enough evidence, and that's why it's great to live in America, is you need more evidence before you just get convicted of murder. I've heard so many people talk about this outcome in a positive way. It's really interesting. And then, so can we finally go over this whole George theory now?
Yeah, if you want to jump to that.
Let's talk about this.
Fine.
So this is like, I have forever just thought she drugged her, but we went through this like Reddit thing the other night, and someone had put together the entire timeline of the day that it all happened. And when you look at the actual times and how, and the calls that were made and just like what was happening that day, which let's go through that.
Okay. Yeah.
You start to kind of question like, what, maybe this isn't how it actually happened, because I mean, one of the biggest things for me is it seems to have happened during the day by this timeline. So why would she be drugging her during the day unless she was trying to make her nap? But that seems a little extreme to like drug your kid for a nap.
Yeah.
Not that you should ever drug your kid, but like,
why?
Yeah.
And if she was home already, just hanging out.
Yeah, she was just hanging out.
It seems like she was just home. So yeah, so let me go through this timeline real quick. And it's based upon phone calls that were made from the Anthony residence, from Casey, from internet activity that they found. And we were able to actually piece together what kind of how the day went down on June 16th, 2008. So at 7 a.m., Cindy Anthony left for work. At 7:45 a.m., a call is made from the Anthony family home to Casey's cell phone. Presumably, this call was made by Casey in an attempt to find her cell phone, which she was pinging from the home. At 7:52 a.m., activity from Casey Anthony's password-protected account on MySpace and research for Shot Girls costumes for Tony Lazzaro's nightclub events is found. At 7:56 a.m., an AIM account was used to chat on the computer, which was just assorted normal searches, calls, texts, and AIMs were just done throughout the morning and early afternoon. Nothing in there worth noting. At 1:44 p.m., Casey calls friend Amy, and then they get off the phone at 2:21 p.m. And finish talking. And then at 2:30 p.m., George Anthony testified that he left the home at this time to go to work at 2:30. And then at 2:51 p.m., a Google search is made for the term quote unquote foolproof suffocation, misspelling the last word as suffocation. So it's F-O, it's F-I. And then the user clicks on a suicide-themed website, which this is a huge thing for this theory here. And then there's more activity on MySpace at 2:52 p.m. And then at 2:52 p.m., Casey answers a phone call from Jesse Grund. He describes this conversation as abnormal, where Casey stated to him that her parents were divorcing and she had to find a new place to live. And then at 3:04 p.m., Casey disconnected the phone call from Jesse Grund to take an incoming call from George Anthony. And according to the defense, the 26-second call from her father took place as soon as he got to work to tell her, quote unquote, I took care of everything, telling her he disposed of the body and warning her not to tell her mother about the child's death. So this is what the defense had claimed had happened. And then this is where
like there is not a recording of the calls, which Josh is trying to say. There's no proof.
And then this is when all the calls start going out. So at 3:34 p.m., Casey made a phone call to her boyfriend, Tony Lazzaro. At 4:10 p.m., Casey called Cindy's work. And then at 4:11, Casey's cell phone pings indicate she left around this time for Tony Lazzaro's apartment. And then literally 2 calls go out at 4:11 to Cindy's cell. Then 2 more go out at 4:13 to Cindy's cell. And then she calls Cindy's work. And then she calls her boyfriend again, Tony Lazzaro, then her ex-boyfriend, and then calls Cindy's cell again. And then one last time at 6:30, she tries to call her cell and then tries to call Cindy at home. So clearly trying to get a hold of her mother in a seemingly frantic, urgent way. because you only call your mom over and over and over and over again if something is up and something's big is happening, you know, like something alarming. And then at 7:54 p.m., Casey and Lazaro are seen entering and walking around casually at a Blockbuster video store. Caylee is not with them. And that's all the records that we have as to what was going on during that day. And at an unknown time in the evening, Cindy arrives home to an empty house, either this day or the next, and she found the side gate to the backyard open and the pool ladder still on the above ground pool. This was of particular concern because the family routinely removed the ladder after swimming in order to prevent Caylee from climbing in and drowning. So how does this theory of Caylee accidentally drowning actually work? Because I don't know, this one is interesting. So
yeah, I mean, I never even considered it. I never really.
A lot of people just discounted the defense and were just like, they don't even have a clue. When in reality, they probably knew exactly what happened, and this could even be
what really happened.
And nobody ever gave that a chance. It seems like they immediately went for, you know, the jugular and just want to like say this was a homicide, you know?
I know, it definitely is adding a lot of doubt to my mind for sure, hearing this.
So here's the theory for Caylee accidentally drowning. So here's a version of events that may have happened. Casey woke up and settled in for a lazy day at home. Maybe her father was there with her, but we'll save the discussion for later. Either way, she spent the majority of the day playing on the computer and texting her friends while Caylee played on her own. She probably checked on her sporadically, but I think Caylee mostly just kind of, you know, puttered around the house, just doing her own thing. I mean, she was like 3, so, you know, she could definitely do that. And at 1:44 p.m., Casey gets a phone call from her friend Amy and neglected to check on Caylee for the duration of that 40-minute call, which seems like a very plausible thing that Casey would have done. Just like get on the phone with her friend and like, oh, she's fine. Or whatever.
And then, time goes by quick.
And at some point in that 40 minutes, Caylee opened the back door and saw the pool ladder on the pool, and she climbed in and drowned. And then at 2:21 p.m., Casey hung up with Amy and went to check on Caylee, but she couldn't find her, which leads to a massive search of the house, during which she left the side gate open, which was another thing that Cindy had found and was upset about. Eventually locating Caylee in the pool. And during the next half an hour, a panicked Casey and or possibly George disposed of the remains, because according to this timeline, George hadn't left for work yet.
Right.
So George would have been there at the point in time in which Casey found Caylee in the pool. And then at this point, it's 2:51 p.m. George leaves, presumably with Caylee's body, and Casey's freaking out. Casey's just having a complete meltdown. And she's contemplating suicide and does the search for the foolproof suffocation.
Interesting.
But she snapped out of it by a call from her ex, who was like her fiance, so a really close individual, Jesse, who she tells she has to find a new place to live. And then at 3:04, she gets a phone call from her father, one of the only 2 calls between them that month. The defense claims George told her, quote unquote, he took care of it during that call, but George's memories of that call have never been publicly released. During the next hour, she paces and cries and tries to figure out what to do before breaking down and frantically calling Cindy, who doesn't answer for help. She doesn't know what else to do, so she goes to Tony's apartment and pretends the whole thing never happened.
So, I mean, this theory definitely has quite a bit to it. I mean, this honestly makes somewhat of sense, like when you look at all the timeline for it, because why would she be trying to drug her in the middle of the day?
Yeah.
If that's what happened, or trying to commit a murder real quick, like.
Well, that was the thing that a lot of people brought up, is that if this was in fact premeditated murder as the prosecution put forward, why would she have done it this way? Why would, you know, if you're going to commit a murder, like why would you go hide the body like really close to the house in an obvious place? And, you know, why would you use duct tape? You know, like why would you be doing Google searches about suffocation and stuff? Like it's pretty straightforward how you suffocate somebody. Why would you be searching for that? So this theory makes a lot of sense, that something accidental happened with Caylee, an accidental death, whether Caylee did give her some sort of like Xanax or something to keep her calmed out, and she like overdosed on that, which I think is kind of unlikely.
I think it's possible, especially because
right.
She calls the nanny Zanny the nanny.
Right. That is weird. So clearly there's Xanax involved somewhere.
I mean, could be.
Could be. So it is possible, but to pull off a murder at that time of day and do it in the way that they did, and then would George have really been willing to cover up a murder as opposed to an accidental death? Right. Like, you got to think about the severity of those. Like, if a child is murdered, a grandfather, especially one that clearly like loved his granddaughter, why the hell would he cover up a murder like that? It's so
hard for me to believe that he really, I mean, maybe he seems so genuine, but his daughter's such a good liar. Maybe she got it from him. It's really hard to say, because like you listen to clips of him and he says that he thinks that Casey drugged her.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Casey to this day has like no relationship with her dad, but she still talks to her mom. Her mom and dad are still together. George and Cindy are still together, but they have different ideas of what happened.
It's really weird that they're able to coexist with
it's very
such
strange.
Different thinking about him.
Yeah, because he thinks that she drugged her.
And she should be behind bars.
You know what? And it was really interesting what he said. And it really did make sense. Like, part of me really does believe him. I really have to say. He was saying in the documentary we watched, there's a newer documentary. You can see it on like Hulu. I don't know who made it, but it's pretty new. And they did updated interviews in it. And he was saying that, he would, when he was around her, he would notice that she would have these like dark circles under her eyes. And that's like really abnormal for a little 3-year-old girl.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then sometimes he was like, she was this really healthy kid overall, but then sometimes she would sleep for like 12, 13 hours.
Yeah.
And he was like, I just thought that was so weird. And so he always thought that maybe she was drugging her. Meanwhile, Cindy thinks that she drowned in the pool and the whole...
Well, here's the thing is...
How does Cindy even think that ended? She thinks her husband was involved? I mean, what?
Yeah, no, I know. Well, I don't think she believes any of that at all.
She's in such denial about all of it. She was like, basically her latest interview, she was like, I asked God to punish Casey how he sees fit. And I trusted him to do that. And because he let her off, I think that's what God wants.
She must be innocent, right?
She must be innocent,
right?
Yeah.
Well, if you think about this just from a like rational standpoint, the idea that she accidentally drowned is I think harder to believe than the Xanax thing, especially when you know all of that other things. Because why? If a child indeed goes, it happens a lot, like in Florida and stuff, where children fall into pools and they drown.
My sister almost drowned. Yeah. She legit almost did. This guy had to jump in with his clothes and save her.
If that is indeed how Caylee died, then parents are innocent. They're innocent. And if that was the case from the very beginning, why did they not take that route? Why would Casey implicate herself? And why would she go?
Would it be worth it? The theory is basically that George didn't want to get in trouble, that Cindy would bitch him out about the ladder and stuff, and probably would really bitch him out, probably divorce his ass if she found out that he left the ladder up and Caylee died on their watch.
Could be.
That's what they're presenting.
Sure.
Do I think that's enough to like actually go and bury your grandchild?
Why would you carry
I feel like fear of your wife is a little...
No.
I don't know. And then, so it's kind of hard for me to believe at the end of the day. Plus, like, another thing I wanted to point out is the jail interview, the call with Casey and just George. They're talking. Why would they be talking like that? If meanwhile they both know and they both buried her body. Can we pull that up one more time? Actually, I wanted to revisit that one more time. Because if you notice, it's very interesting to look at their body language when they're talking and stuff. Because if these two both were in on this murder, that is a very strange way for them to communicate. I mean, he's trying to be comforting to her. The beginning of the jail footage, just the beginning of it, where it's only George. Cindy's not in it yet.
Yeah, because I don't know though. Because I mean, at the end of the day, I think the theory of so she gave Caylee some sort of sedative, and because she did that on a regular basis, and I think George probably knew that. The fact that he kind of came to that conclusion fairly quickly.
He may have already
kind of either known or suspected that she was doing something like that. He has law enforcement background, dude. He the fact that he has that too is a whole nother element to it, because he definitely knows. He knows certain things. And
okay, here's the footage.
Any stuff you want to talk to me about? Anything?
It's just nice hearing everything that's going on. I mean, I don't know what to say except I miss you guys, and I love you, and I just.
I know you do. I love you too. I love you more than anything.
Person. I know, Dad. I want to see that little girl. I want to hear Caylee laugh. I want to be with my baby. You know, that's my focus. Her birthday's in just a few days.
Yeah, it is. Just a few days away. And remember, we wanted to have that little one, just like taking her to a park or something, and just be the immediate family. But now we want to have this great big one. So.
Yeah, it's just, I feel like that's such a strange way to talk to each other if meanwhile you both help dispose of a little girl's body. It's just super, super weird. Yeah. George's behavior doesn't align with that. I feel like there'd be more evidence if George really was involved. I don't find him to be so heartless that he could just bury his granddaughter like that. Yeah. I think there was probably some major fighting going on at the house that day. And maybe that's why George had called her, and that's why she was calling her mom over and over. Like, Dad kicked me out. Maybe he was kicking her out that day. I mean, there's so many other things. Yes, that timeline does add up when you put all the little extra details that aren't actually confirmed details. All we really do have is the phone records. We have the shell. We don't know what actually was going on. So you can fill in a lot of different things for those phone calls. Yeah,
there's still a lot of time unaccounted for too. Who knows what was going on.
Right. But do I think it's enough to cast reasonable doubt? I think so. I see where these jury members were coming from, and they interviewed one of them in this most recent documentary, and he was like, we had so much. They could not tell us one way that she was they could not paint a picture of how she died.
Yeah.
And how it would have happened. And, they could not do that. They didn't explain it well enough to them. They didn't explain how she would have had any involvement. They didn't present a good enough even idea. Obviously you can't
connect the dots.
Exactly. Yeah. And there was so much missing.
Too many holes. That was the thing. There's too many holes
and too much circumstantial evidence.
Yeah. It was too many things had to go perfectly right in a sense to make sense of that theory that they brought forward. And the fact that the fact that they went with the duct tape thing, I think was a big, I think they should have went with the whole theory that George put forward after it. Why didn't they go with the Zanny theory? The fact that why didn't they go with that?
I think they fucked up. They shouldn't have gone for the death penalty.
They went just so hardcore with it, trying to get her on homicide and premeditated murder. I think it backfired on them. And in reality, if they had gone with a lesser sentence and said that this was more of a, it was not necessarily premeditated, but she often gave her sedatives, and there's a chance that she, it happens. You can die from getting too much of a,
definitely, especially as a kid,
type of sedative pill or something. And they freaked out, and, she decided that the best thing to do in order to save her own ass was to get rid of the body and hope that people just thought she went missing. Somebody kidnapped her.
Yeah.
Because it's a pretty desperate plan, I think, to be a premeditated murder.
It doesn't feel premeditated to me either.
I don't know. There's so many angles you can go with this, and there's so many different
and then there's a whole nother, I just remembered, there's a whole nother bit that we really should talk about, but I think we're kind of out of time here, but just Jose bias. It turns out that...
we need to talk about that.
Yeah, we really need to talk about that.
Yeah, before we wrap things up, because this was also
This is interesting. Just what the guy had to say, the dude who worked with them. I thought that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, it's really crazy. So Dominic Casey, the private investigator that the defense hired. So at the end of the trial, Casey Anthony got sued. The state, the EquiSearch all wanted money for the time that had been spent and wasted on this, in a sense.
She had multiple lawsuits. She had one with Zenaida. She ended up having to file for bankruptcy because she was so fucked.
She had $800,000 in debt in legal fees. So in 2013, she filed for bankruptcy, and then Dominic Casey, who was the investigator who worked on Casey's trial, essentially came out with kind of this tell-all situation where he said that he remembers coming into Jose Baez's law office unexpectedly, and he said he saw a naked Casey running out of the lawyer's private office.
Yep.
And he said that night I told her that she cannot allow him to continue engaging in this behavior. Casey told me she had to do what Jose said because he had no money for her defense.
Yeah. He straight up claims that she would would
Sexual
do something
favors
for her and in exchange for 3 blowjobs.
Yeah. And Jose is denied all of these claims.
Yeah. Of course.
Yeah. Yeah, it was published in his tell-all book, apparently. So he kind of had these shocking claims. And then he had also said that Jose had told me that Casey had murdered Caylee and dumped the body somewhere, and he needed all the help he could get to find the body before anyone else did, Dominic claimed. So he's claiming that it was murder too, coming straight from Baez. So if this has any truth to it, then maybe it was murder. I mean, that's the thing, is it could always go back. Maybe it was that bad to where she just snapped or something and she murdered her child, which is crazy.
Yeah, she could have clicked the foolproof suffocation message.
Yeah.
Sorry. Just because she went to a page that was about suicide doesn't mean that she wasn't still getting the information from a suicide page. You can still learn stuff from there.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you're going to do it to someone else.
Exactly.
It doesn't prove that she was going to commit suicide.
It's just a theory. Again, it's just a theory on Reddit,
Yep.
The central hub for theories, is armchair detectives. But yeah, I mean, there's so many ways you could go with this. And I mean, Casey today she did an interview in 2017 and they asked her straight up, what do you think happened? And she just says, I don't know. I don't know how she died. I don't know what happened.
Yeah.
Basically just doesn't say shit.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And
she gets mad if they even bring it up too. It's no one else is here to talk to you about anything else, dude.
Yeah. Yeah. And she's just been living in solitude because, of course, she had death threats and everything else. She had to go into hiding. She's tried to make
books, but no one wants to publish her book.
Try to be open her own photography business.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So I mean, she's.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Take your maternity pictures with Casey Anthony.
Fuck, man. So yeah, she's been in hiding, and actually, she went to work for one of the investigators on her trial. Actually, she lives with him and works for him. It's this kind of weird thing because she has no money. I mean, she's bankrupt. She can't get a job.
Everyone hates her.
Everybody hates her. She can't even really go into public. So she is, she's just kept keeping a low profile. And she was only seen recently at a anti-Trump rally. There was a picture of her taken.
At an anti-Trump rally?
Anti-Trump rally, yep.
Interesting.
But otherwise, she's been in seclusion, and that people pretty much leave her alone now. Huh. No one really bothers her anymore. So, yeah, I mean, that's this whole massive case, and I hate to say it in a nutshell, but in a
very
short
large
version.
nutshell.
Yeah, I mean, you can go so deep with this. I'll link all of the stuff that we looked at on Reddit and stuff. So if you're interested in looking at and analyzing every little tidbit of evidence and considering all theories with everything, I'll put that link that for you guys. But yeah, definitely let us know what you guys think. I mean, this is such a crazy case, and the theories are just wild, and you can go any which direction. I mean, I think almost any of those couple theories are plausible.
Yeah.
The
drowning,
what
do you guys think happened though?
Or
I really want to know what you guys think, because
an overdose, or was it murder?
Especially after listening, has your opinions on it changed at all after hearing some of the stuff that we found?
And do you think George could be, hiding things, and could he have been involved in disposing of the body? Could he know more than he's leading on? And maybe that's partly why he was suicidal and stuff. Maybe he's carrying some really heavy things that he participated in or something with him every day, and it's just eating him alive. I don't know. I personally, my personal opinion is I think that this was an accidental death, something that went wrong, and that even though it was accidental, it was still going to look really bad on Casey, because it would come out she was giving her kid Xanax or something like that.
Yeah.
And then they freaked out because she'd get in trouble for that.
Oh, for sure.
And so either with the help of her dad, or maybe just purely on her own, she went and disposed of Caylee in the woods near their house. So,
I mean, the only way we'll ever know is if she tells, and she might one day. I mean, who knows?
Maybe a tell-all book or something.
Yeah, maybe she will. I'm sure she will, honestly, if she can find someone to publish it.
But yeah, we'll go ahead and wrap it up there today, guys. hopefully you found this case interesting.
Hopefully you did if you listened to this long of it. Imagine if you got to the end and you're like, wow, that was so boring. I hated every second of that.
No, there's no way. This one is just so crazy, so insane. But if you guys enjoyed the episode, please let us know in the comments. Leave us a like, subscribe on iTunes and YouTube. And yeah, come and see us at RTX if you're going to be there.
Oh, yes.
Should be a good time. And we'll be back next week with a really interesting episode that's kind of different than what you're used to. So look forward to that. But yeah, thanks again for listening.
Stay safe next time. Oh,
sorry.
Stay woke.
See you guys.